All right. How's everyone doing? Hello, hello, hello. Hello, hello, hello. Okay, so, first of all, Andrianami says Morj looking like Oda with all the stalling he's doing. This is not that. This is. I think we were good. This is pretty good, right? This started pretty on time. Pretty damn on time. All right, looks like I'm behind one super already. This chapter was fucking awesome to read because here's the thing. I already saw some of the shitty scans were already on my feed, so I got a like I got to see a little bit like the low quality version of what the Gorosei were looking like, but actually reading it on like in clean quality with TCB, it was still phenomenal. Like seeing the full spread, it's one of the coolest spreads in One Piece history, right? Am I crazy? It's easily one of the coolest spreads in One Piece history. King Jesus, this chapter changed my life. This chapter was something. This chapter was fucking amazing. Tala, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 10 months, man. Always good to see you. Been seeing a lot of... Yeah, you're the big... You're... You're definitely the head of the Sanji Brigade, I think, as far as this... as far as these streams chats tend to go. Been seeing a lot of Sanji leadership this arc. Giving orders, connecting people and information, etc. Even made Zoro lock in. Small but appreciated. Let's hope that... I agree. Sanji's been really good this arc. I think the Vegapunk fumble was... We don't talk about that. But I think aside from that, he's been really good this arc. Let's hope that Sanji and Zoro both get in on this Gorosei action. Because there's so much to go around. Everyone's got fights. Even the Pacifista are... Well, no, the Pacifista are out of commission. But, I was going to say they can go back to fighting Pacifista now. But, let me catch... I think I missed one at the very beginning of this. Let me get this membership real quick. Muhammad D. Luffy, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 15 months, man. Hi, Morj, how are you? So, thanks for the question. Thanks for asking. I'm a couple things, right? So, one, I'm feeling mixed right now because I realize I really like streaming during the day. I really, really enjoy it. If chapters are going to keep coming out Friday, that's possibly the way we go. I don't want to abandon the viewers who are used to streaming in evenings. Obviously, Monday streams will always be in the evenings. But if chapters are coming out Friday, I can't really... Like, Friday evenings are going to be hard for me to do. So we're going to do a poll, community poll, next week if this is going to be the norm. But right now, I'm feeling great. I've got coffee. I can't drink coffee at night, so I'm not going to be streaming. You don't see me drinking coffee when I stream in the evenings. But I'm feeling really good. The chapter was phenomenal. It just feels very relaxing to wake up, read a chapter. I recorded the Morj cast, which is for all Yonko tier members. I recorded that. Had some breakfast. Took care of some other stuff, basically, which was related to next week's video. Got the thumbnail and stuff ready for that. Or the artist, basically, instructions out for that and everything. Then I just sat down, or did my chapter review, and now I'm sitting down and doing this. So, like... It's been a really nice, relaxing Friday. I'm also moving apartments, by the way, so this background's all going to change. Things are going to get hectic for me for the next 2 weeks, but, we'll figure it out. All right. Yeah, Bensky says us Europeans love this early stream. That's the thing. I don't want to abandon, like, the normal... Like, okay, everyone who's used to getting Monday streams, those are not going to change at that time, but it's like Thursday streams. If we're not getting the chapter Thursday evenings... I don't know what I'm going to do exactly because do I stick to Friday middle of the day? It gets in the Europeans, but I don't want to abandon people who are used to discussing the chapter with me on Thursday evenings. So we'll figure out a middle ground, hopefully. Yeah, we'll figure out a middle ground. We still don't know if this is going to be the norm for chapters going forward. All right, Dryga Humula, thanks a lot, Morj. You're a unique and intelligent voice in One Piece community, and your analytical skills are superlative. Thanks so much, man. I really, really, really appreciate that. That's a very nice thing to say. Seriously. P.S. Man marked by flame equals new or unknown guy. XOXO from EU. You Europeans are so much nicer. I'm just going to stream just from the middle of the day. I'm going to stream during Europeans time so that you guys can catch it from here on. Alright? If you guys are going to be so nice to me, of course I'll do that. I'm kidding. I'll do a poll. Rude ass Americans. You guys can swing the poll to keep it in the evenings. Let's see. We'll see how it goes. So man marked by flames is he a new or unknown or a known guy? So the options some people were talking about is that it could be Dragon. Some people said it could be Saul. Um, I really hope it's not Dragon. Just in Saul, it doesn't make any sense because he doesn't do the things that they say the man marked by flames does. It could be Dragon. It could be Dragon, or it could be a Rocks pirate remnant. Those are the things that are being thrown around. I think there was one other really good theory that somebody else had that I saw that I don't remember now. Like, it was brought up in chat. I don't remember what it is at this point. Yeah. Reflexy, thanks for being a member for 13 months. The portrayal of action in this chapter was unreal. Oh, the Venus Juro was the highlight for this chapter for me, just action-wise. I thought the way that Oda drew, like, it felt very, very... let's get the likes up to 100 real quick. Like, everything Venus Juro did, the way that Oda drew him, you could feel sort of the... I like when a character's fighting style feels very vivid. And to me, the sense that I got, just the way that the movement was drawn, the way that the sprinting action, but also just the way that he, like, the sword movement was drawn, at least to me, it felt like a very, very, like, an extremely swift, precise fighter with just, like, a sort of, I don't even know how to describe, like, just a very fluid sort of, fluid, like, zipping, or, I don't know how to explain, like just like a blade that's cutting through the entire battlefield very, very swiftly across the entire island. That was sort of the feeling that I got, and it was just so much fun to read that and watch that visualized. I think the anime is going to do a phenomenal job with him. I'm looking forward to hopefully seeing him fight Zoro at some point. Maybe we get to see some of that matchup this arc. African Lays, thanks for the 10. Hey Morj, can you talk about your favorite Straw Hat individual one-on-one fights for each member and rank your top 3 out of them? Also, can you make the 1 year Pirate King podcast a special High Morj one? Oh shit, I forgot. Okay. Let me make a note. I'm gonna make a note right now. Hold on. I'm gonna make a note right now. I did promise a High Pirate King podcast or Morjcast at some point. We might do a High Morjcast at one point, and maybe a High Pirate King podcast at some point. The problem is I'd have to actually buy. Would you guys be okay with Delta 8? Because I don't have like actual weed on me. I haven't had actual weed on me in like a while. I mostly use Delta 8, but I could maybe do it for the sake of the podcast. Let me set a reminder. Okay. As for the top fights for the Straw Hats, I'll just rattle them off real quick. Luffy versus Lucci, Zoro versus Mr. One, Sanji versus Queen. This is ranking them like in just general order, not top 3. Nami versus Khalifa, Usopp versus Mr. 4, Usopp versus Mr. 4, Chopper versus Kumadori, Robin obviously versus Black Maria, Frankie versus Fukuro. Brook doesn't really have one. I guess Jinbei versus Who's Who by default. If I were to rank top 3 out of those, I would say Luffy versus Lucci, Zoro versus Mr. 1, and then maybe Usopp versus Mr. 4. Usopp and Chopper versus Mr. 4. Usopp's solo fight would be Usopp versus Perona, and I'd rank that lower. I just really like the emotion of the Usopp Mr. 4. I view it more as an Usopp fight than a Chopper fight, although it's obviously a team one. I just really like the emotion of it towards the end. I think it's one of Usopp's best moments ever. One of the best character moments in One Piece ever. And it's the first huge, like... It's the first huge... The Usopp speech to Chopper at the end of that fight is the first huge... it's the first real, like, sort of declaration or clear, vivid moment of just Straw Hat loyalty to Luffy no matter what. Obviously, all the Straw Hats are loyal to Luffy, but it was just cool seeing that was what... Like, it wasn't something personal for... It was the moment that made Usopp turn around was... And like, actually fight, despite his life being... obviously, like, having his 1% chance of surviving, it wasn't for himself. It was because someone insulted his captain. I thought that was huge. Sleeping Danger, thanks a lot. Does Sanji fight Mars to save the other Straw Hats? I think that there could be a good chance of that happening. I would love to see Sanji versus Mars, Zoro versus Venus Juro. Some people are talking about, like, how location-wise it doesn't line up as well, though. So maybe we get some unexpected matchups. I don't know. Tulungu96, thanks for the 5. Oda had Lucci stall Zoro to stay in the Labosphere. That way, Nostura will ride over to him as he's blitzing the island. That's a very good point. I mean, look, at the end of the day, we all understand why Oda does certain things. Sometimes stalling just has to happen to keep certain characters in certain situations. Because if you're not stalling Zoro somewhere else, then that's complicating everything else. Then you have to have Zoro in on the Saturn and Kizaru fight, and Oda probably doesn't want that too soon, right? So there's aspects to that you just have to do story-wise. So it makes sense. Behenoid, thanks a lot. People zoomed in on the pentagrams. I saw this on Twitter. And it seems that Venus has 2 on his own, and Valkyrie Mars have 3 and 4. I don't know what it means, but power scale, order of joining. Also, Jupiter could be the leader. So I have my own thoughts on that, which I'll be putting out next Tuesday. Maybe there is some weight to that. That's entirely possible. Maybe Jupiter is the leader. But I have some reasons for believing that it's a different order, and that it would actually be Mercury, then Venus, then... well, you'll see next video. I do agree with Venus Juras being number 2. Hawkins, thanks for the 5. This man Oda came up with the sandworm on the fly to promote Dune. So real. How would the hybrid form even look for this man? I don't know how the hybrid form works. Maybe he just fights in giant form the entire time. I don't know, because what the hell? The hybrid form would be so unwieldy, I feel. And I am curious if Oda was actually just... Because if you look at the... Here's the thing. If you go back and look at the Sabo chapter at the Reverie, Jupiter is the only one where we can't really see his transformation. You see the others, so the others seem to be somewhat thought out already, right? Saturn looks like everybody else. It lines up with what we see nowadays. Oda already thought Mars was going to be a bird. He already had the giant tusks and everything planned for Valkyrie. Jupiter is unclear, and Jupiter, I feel like Oda kind of maybe left open, because if you go back and look, it's very vague what it is. And it turned out to be a sandworm, which doesn't match at all what we were seeing in the throne room. So it's genuinely possible that Oda kind of wanted, like, he didn't have an absolute idea plan for each one of them at that point in time. I mean, it's possible. Breezy2x, thanks for the 5. Do you still believe in one Gorse dying before the final battle against them? Also, I can put you on my barber. Oh, my hair is like way... I'm getting a haircut Monday. Don't worry about that. I have it scheduled. But my hair is way overgrown at this point, for sure. Gorse dying... I mean, I think Saturn goes down. Whether he dies or not, I don't know. Whether he's sunk to the bottom of the sea, I don't know. But Saturn definitely... I feel like he goes down this arc. John678, thanks for the 2. What difficulty was Zoro versus Lucci? Is Lucci done forever? I view it as, I consider it mid difficulty. I don't think is that crazy? Are people going to be upset at me for saying that? I consider it mid difficulty. Yeah, I just consider it mid difficulty. That's what I put it at. Is Lucci done forever? I think he could be done for the arc. It would be funny if we then get to see Sanji fight Lucci and it's just everybody gets to fight Lucci at one point. But I'd like to believe that he's done with the arc. There's just so much more important stuff to be doing now that I hope that we don't really have to keep dealing with Lucci. Yeah, let's get the stream likes up to 200 real quick. Nicholas Sealstern, thanks for the 5. I haven't been a stream in a while, but with the Gorse having telepathy with each other, how will Teach deceive them in your Blackbeard rise to power theory? So, a few things to think about that, because I do think that that's a big deal. One, it could just be, let's say hypothetically, one of them's defeated. So one, it could be instead Blackbeard using Saturn as a hostage or something like that, right? Let's say Luffy defeats Saturn and the others don't see it happen, and then next that they see Saturn, like, for them it's like, wait, Saturn went offline essentially, and next that they see Saturn, it's unconscious and held captive by Blackbeard. That could be a way that they do it. Another way is that, well, not another way, but another thing to consider is that I went back and reread, the Gorse don't use telepathy when talking to each other normally. It seems to be just a long distance thing. If you look at all the other, if you look at all their other interactions, they actually just talk to each other. So just because they use telepathy in this specific instance of traveling like having to speak to Saturn from all the way in Morj, that doesn't necessarily mean that they would be checking on Saturn with telepathy if they're back in Morj. It seems like they just naturally talk to each other in that case. So that's another thing to consider. But then finally, it's possible that, yeah, maybe Saturn isn't going to be super important for Blackbeard in that sense. Maybe Saturn's appearance is just going to be used to command the Seraphim or something like that. But we can assume, I feel, that the Saturn that Katarina Devon getting Saturn's voice, appearance, etc., is going to matter in some way. I think we can assume that, right? Otherwise, why even write that in? Justin Holland, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 17 months, man. Always good to see you. From a kid bursting out of a barrel in the East Blue to an emperor capable of getting the public demonic world leaders off their asses and go, fine, we'll do it ourselves. Yeah, this was kind of a Thanos moment. It was just like, fuck, where are we? Alright, Kizaru, sit down. We gotta do this one. P.S. Zoro got his revenge. Zoro did get revenge on Lucci from all the way back in Enies Lobby. For those of you who don't remember, like, Zoro versus Lucci, that was low-key an overdue little payback on Zoro's end. I think at this point, if Zoro gets a run back on Enel, that would be nice. I don't think he's got any sort of missing, I guess you could say Kuma, but he's not going to do anything to Kuma. I'm just thinking, Zoro, Enel, that would be a nice little run back for him. I don't think that'll ever happen, though. It just wouldn't make sense. What would have happened in the story? Yeah, I think that's the other one that's kind of missing for him. I don't count Zoro Arlong because Zoro was just injured and half dead there. But yeah, he got the Lucci thing checked off for himself. Tom, thanks for the 5. Every time you're late, put 1 bead in a bucket for each minute you're late. When it fills up, you have to do the waifu tier list stream or another forfeit. That is a cool idea. But I'm gonna be honest. What I would do is, like, in between streams, I would take out beads from the bucket so I never have to do it. Javon Johnson, thanks for the 2. Every chapter is what a chapter. We never lose. Yeah, I'm kind of upset because, like, some people were saying, like, last chapter, that the last chapter didn't look, because last chapter leading up to the chapter, it was a very hyped chapter by leakers, right? And then some people were saying that it didn't live up to the hype. To me, yeah, it did. Like, summoning all 4 Gorsei, I don't know who the fuck was predicting that. That is insane to me. This chapter, we just got to see all of them, which is even more exciting and more, more fun. But I think the last 2 chapters have been amazing. Last several chapters have obviously been amazing, but I feel like each one in the last run of chapters has been better than the last. Tilingu96, thanks. Would be surprised if Lucci got up and fought Jinbei. Actually, hold up. Wait, let's do a quick, do we do polls? I feel like chat's flying by so fast. I don't know if people have the patience for polls. We can do polls. Let's get the likes up to 200 real quick. Okay, I'll do a quick poll. Is Lucci fighting, is Lucci fighting anyone else? No, yes, Jinbei. I'll throw Sanji in there as just like a little no, what's the point? Who cares about that? Okay. Yeah, let's throw that in as an option. I feel like Lucci should be too strong for Jinbei personally, but, you never know. Hugo Lopez is, come on, the sandworm has to be a Dune reference. Again, I've been saying that if you go back and look at the original silhouettes we got of the Gorsei zone forms, Jupiter's was the only one that it seems like Oda hadn't really nailed down or picked just yet. So it's possible that, or maybe Oda had something in mind and then decided to change it after seeing Dune. Oda is a really big movie fan. He's talked about that in the past. So I could easily see him changing that. Where are we at? William Marshall, thanks for the 5. The spread of the Gorsei had heavy Eclipse vibes. I love it. Yeah, definitely. A little Berserk light right there. Also, this is the first time Gear 5th Luffy was made to look so small. OP is really peaking right now. That's true. It was the first time that it kind of looked like just he's up against an overwhelming force. It's rare that Gear 5th Luffy is framed in that manner. Rodolfo, thank you for the 10, man. Can't stay to watch stream, but damn, this chapter is making me feel zones. If the Gorsei do have zone fruits, a bit overpowered compared to Logia and Paramecia, keep up great analytical content. I think that's one of the coolest things in the series for me. So no one thinks that most people don't think Lucci's fighting anyone else. Yeah, I would agree. That's one of the coolest things in the series for me, because if you track the trajectory, towards the beginning, like I'd say first 400, 500-ish chapters, most people would say that Logias were the coolest and most broken, just because they were, and we didn't have a clear idea of how to fight them, and it was just, anytime with the Straw Hats or we were introduced to a Logia, it was just like, okay, this is just a problem. It's like, how do you deal with this sort of character? Especially when you started getting, like, I remember people talking, when Kizaru was revealed way back at Sabaody, it was just like, holy shit, a light man, speed of light. Logias were really the shit in early One Piece, right? Then I think we hit a sort of transitional period where people started appreciating paramecias more. When it was, I think one of the big moments was when it was revealed that Whitebeard had a paramecia fruit, the Guru Guru no Mi, and it supposedly was capable of destroying the world, or one of the most powerful fruits at the very least. I think a lot of people to date still consider it to be the straight up strongest fruit in terms of straight power. Debatable, whatever. But like I feel like we saw a bit of a paramecia renaissance during that time. And obviously we found out about mythical zones. So zones kind of got it. Zones. It wasn't until Marco that people actually started finding zones interesting. If you remember way back, I mean, I don't know how many of you were even part of like One Piece discussion way back, but zones were kind of the throwaway. Okay, just Oda just gave him a fruit. It's some animal fruit. It's the easiest type to think of, right? And now we're like late game in the story, and it's just like, okay, so Zoans are the shit. Zoans are the most interesting type, because Zoans are where you get the real dynamic powers, right? Because at the end of the day, if you're a Logia, even though it's very powerful, it's just like fire, ice, lightning. It's straightforward. Whereas with each Zoan that we get, it feels like there's so much that could be packaged into that, right? It's the physical stats buff, but on top of that, like, why can Venus Juro use ice? It's not just speed, it's also ice. Who knows what else he can do? Obviously Luffy, obviously Kaido with so many different elemental abilities and options. So Zoan fruits really became the most interesting, I feel like, late in the game, which is really cool. But as JK brought up, Logia Awakening is going to be too broken. So I think that Sleeping Dangerous says Marco pushed the needle for zones. Marco really came through, and I think he just changed everyone's ideas on zones. Because before that, it was like, zones are fucking, like, Pell, or, like, Dalton, or some shit. Like, you know, Lucci was obviously cool, but he was cool because he was good at all this other shit, and he was a zone on top of that, right? But Marco was the moment it was like, wait, some of the sickest, most unique abilities are going to be zone fruits. That's interesting. But yeah, the Logia Awakenings, I feel like it's always just gonna, Oda's gonna make every Devil Fruit type interesting. So there's still really cool paramecias, and Logia Awakening is that little card that he's had in his bag that he can, or up his sleeve, sorry, that he can still pull out, that we're still excited to see. All right, Stormfox, thanks. This will give us a time chart to Gear 5th. It will, but at the same time, I just don't think that it's gonna be. I wouldn't use this to count on consistency, because I don't know, man. I've just seen I feel like at the end of the day, Oda's going to use Gear 5th for however long is convenient before he says, okay, now Luffy has to run out of Gear 5th juice, you know? Because one thing is like, I don't know. I just wouldn't stick to this concretely as like, okay, this is the limit for Gear 5th. Because, I mean, things change. I mean, for example, there was a point where it's like, okay, Gear 4th needs 10 minutes to get for Luffy to get his juices back up. And then I think over time that kind of got waived. So, I don't know. Andrew McCarthy, thanks a lot. This arc, Zoro versus Nujiro, Sanji versus Mars. Let me throw you guys a poll. Are the Gorosei being defeated here? I personally think no. And next week's video goes in depth into what actually I think happens with them. But are the Gorosei defeated here? Yes, no. Ignore Saturn. Saturn does not count for this poll. We're talking about general Gorosei. So like Venus Juro, Mars. Is this the arc that we're taking them down? I'm starting the poll. I do think we could see Zoro versus Venus Juro as like a bit of it, but maybe not the full thing. And Sanji versus Mars, a bit of it, but maybe not the full thing. Akash Panda bringing up a similar thing. Thanks for the 5. You can see different numbers on Gorosei summoning circles. Jupiter 1, Venus Juro 2, Valkyrie 3, Mars 4, Saturn 5. I get that. I'm not going to subscribe to that being their power scaling just yet. One of the other factors, small factors, just being, okay, so we're all on board for the most part that this is not, the Gorosei are not going down here, right? We're just going to see some fighting, like some action, a little glimpse of what they can do. Just checking. All right, so we're there. As for the Gorosei being power scaled by the numbers on their pentagrams, that could be the case. One little thing that I would say is that it seems very I don't think that Jupiter is the strongest of them. Maybe he is, but there's a lot of reasons that I don't think so, that you'll see in next week's video. Another small reason I would add is simply that it does seem like Oda kind of came up with Jupiter's mythical Zoan form last. you know. So he was confident in all the other ones, and then again, if you compare the Sabo scene, just the timing of the Dune movie and everything like that, I do think it's very likely that Oda maybe did not. I don't know, and just the fact that Jupiter is the first one to kind of get decapitated right here. Obviously, he's not down for the count, you know, but Jupiter's being used for the Giants to flex their abilities and such. I feel like outside of the pentagram thing, I think that there's a lot of factors that indicate that Jupiter is not the strongest and may actually be one of the lesser relevant Gorosei. But we know so little that I could be totally wrong. Could be totally wrong. The one thing about Jupiter that stands out is that he's the youngest, so maybe being the youngest makes him a little bit more capable or formidable or something like that. Nerve AMV Maker, thanks for the 5. I think this chapter makes it clear that Zoro wasn't using Advanced Conqueror's Haki for most of the fight. I wish Oda would give a reason why Luffy and Zoro would hold back. So at least with, I think there are reasons that have kind of become clear, and I think that they're clear enough that you wouldn't call them headcanon anymore. With Zoro using Advanced Conqueror's Haki, I would agree that he probably wasn't, it seems to me that he wasn't using it earlier at this point. Wait, actually, you guys want to do a poll on that? Because I'm still a little hazy, but was Zoro using Advanced Conqueror's Haki throughout the Lucci fight before this? Yes, no. Yeah, so like, let's talk about Luffy real quick. I did a whole video talking about like why Luffy is holding back. I think that the reason is actually fairly clear. Now, if you just go through and look, it's spelled out for us pretty clearly throughout the Kaido fight, when Luffy first gets Gear 5th, which is, it seems like the form literally affects his persona and his personality and makes him want to have fun. This is something that Luffy outright is talking about. He's like, I don't understand why, I just feel like having fun. That's why he goofs around so much during the Kaido fight, before getting serious. That's why he goofed around so much against Kizaru, whereas the second round he was really serious and took care of Kizaru very quickly, right? That's why Luffy goofed around so much against Lucci. It's just, Gear 5th literally makes him, it makes him, it plays up or amplifies the more playful side of him, right? He can still get serious in Gear 5th, and as soon as he does, it's pretty much raps for whoever he's fighting. But for the most part, he is just naturally influenced to fuck around in Gear 5th. So Luffy makes sense. I think that there's no question there. And Zoro, it also makes sense, because just go back and read the King fight. The King fight, like, using Advanced Conqueror's Haki, that was kind of what the entire struggle of the fight was for him, which was, it's draining. It's a very draining ability to be using, you know? It's a very draining ability for Zoro to be using. He also only just got it down. He wasn't even capable of using, like, Zoro is just learning Conqueror's Haki shit, basically, right? He wasn't actively using Conqueror's Haki deliberately at any point in the series before this. He didn't even know he was a Conqueror. So for Zoro, it's like, he can turn on Advanced Conqueror's Haki, but the last time he did it was in this life or death situation against King. Obviously, he can use it when needed. It's just, we already saw like, if you reread the King fight, you can see that it is technically established to be a pretty draining ability, you know? I do think it's a little contrived that, you know, the battle's going, and Zoro knows that there's strong opponents out there, and Zoro's even sensing that, oh, Haki's, you know, other characters, like a powerful Haki's appearing, and Zoro's still not using Advanced Conqueror's Haki. So it takes Sanji actually kind of needling him to use it. So I do think the situation was somewhat contrived, but, you know, it is what it is. I think with so many moving parts, ultimately you do need some contrived situations to make the plot work at the end of the day, I think. Breezy2x, thanks for the 2. Could 10 people with ARs beat pre-time skip Zoro? No. I'll say no. No, come on now. Patricio Zambrano. Okay, so people don't think he was using Advanced Conqueror's Haki, I agree. Patricio Zambrano. This does make King of Hell mode much more vague. I'm not even going to consider King of Hell mode a mode until we see it ever used again or something, you know? It could just be some effects that Oda did for a brief period of time. I don't fucking know. Patricio Zambrano, I'm sorry, man. Thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 11 months. Hey man, love the new schedule for streams. You do. Just moved to the States. Do you have any recommendations to someone new to America? Oh shit. Well, it depends where you move from, because depending on where you move from, I think that there's going to be different things that are exciting to you. Also depends where you're at, because, you know, there's different shit that you can do in Oklahoma versus New York City. You know what I mean? Recommendations. Honestly, I think that one of the coolest things about America that I realized is not the case in other countries is just the availability. Like, no matter what your hobbies or interests are, consumerism is so high in America that you can probably find, wherever you're at, you can find things that cater to your interests. So if you like playing board games or something, you can probably find like places in your area that host like big board game nights or something like that. If you like sports, you'll find sports pickup leagues immediately, like very easily, in like all sorts of varieties, drinking leagues, etc. I mean, I know stuff like that exists in other countries, but what I'm trying to get across is, like, any niche interest you have whatsoever, you can find something for yourself in America, and you'll probably find a lot of people interested. You'll probably find stores that are catered specifically to that interest. It is just generally easy to find consumerism-based stuff, hobby-based stuff, etc. in America. On a more general note, I mean, good shit that we have is, like, national parks. We got lots of options for international cuisine, because, again, consumerism is high, so if you like a certain type of cuisine, you are going to be able to find it in America. Like, if you like Ethiopian food, you'll find like 5 Ethiopian restaurants in your city. I guess those are the main benefits, and then other stuff is complicated. Maybe not so much benefits. Not everything's a benefit, that's for sure. Rayo Chia, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 17 months, man. Happy birthday, Mr. Mork. I don't have to work today, so I can watch the whole stream. That's awesome. I'm sorry for people who I'm streaming during their work hours. It's just the way shit is at the moment. We will figure this out. We'll do a poll next week to figure out what the best time to stream is. I think Zora's still learning Conqueror's Haki and can't use it on command. I think he can use it on command. I personally think he can use it on command, because I think that was what the king fight was for. I just think that it is still... It's likely that it's not something that he's going to jump to right away, I would think. Behanoid, thanks a lot. Mars appears to have entered the lava phase. The explosion was inside. Oh, you think he got through? To me, it was a little unclear. I think the crew might actually get some action versus him before the arc ends. Copium. The crew versus Agorase? I don't know about that. Like, no disrespect to the crew, but in One Piece, just the higher up the scale go... I mean... Yeah, I don't know. I don't think... there's just something a little scarier about the Gorosei. Like, I know, like, the crew has survived, like, being around Big Mom and stuff. There's just something a little scarier about the Gorosei. Not saying that the Gorosei are stronger than Big Mom and such. We don't know these sort of things just yet. But, like, whereas I can imagine Oda writing, you know, Frankie running over Big Mom with a motorcycle, and then, like, Robin and Jinbei rolling her off the island, in like 2 panels and then being done with it. I don't feel like Mars would get the same treatment, so I feel like dealing with Mars might be a little bit more difficult. I would like to see maybe Sanji come in and help. But I also want to see the crew the crew do what they can do. You know, I would love to see them contribute in other ways. Because the Pacifista have stopped firing on the Vice Admirals, I would love to see the crew versus Vice Admirals, man. That would be perfect. Tequan Nayuta, thanks a lot. Firebird Star versus Itsumade. Any Slobby callback? I don't know if Firebird Star is going to do that much to Itsumade. I don't know if it's going to be that effective, you know? Virgil Hawkins says, oh, missed 15-month Pirate King? Oh, I'm so sorry, JWP, my bad. Thank you, Virgil Hawkins. Thanks so much. You are genuinely invaluable to being able to catch these things. I'm so sorry. But thank you so much for catching this. JWP, I'm sorry, man. You've been a Pirate King tier member for so fucking long. Morjman, Egghead top 1? Question mark. Also, Sanji fans said they're abandoning the worm as his opponent, LMAO, because they want the bird instead. Just watch the Morjcast. Love the content. Thanks. Okay, so I'm going to actually talk about that next week. It's next week's video. I got a lot to say about all of this. To Sanji fans' credit, I would say that you could argue that there's some framing stuff. Like, Sanji's got his eye on Mars here already. I think the matchup is a little bit cooler. It's a little bit sexier. Sky battle. Sanji hasn't really gotten a good sky battle before. I think the only one he really got was Doflamingo, and you know that wasn't supposed to be. That was a small moment for Sanji, which didn't really result in a win. But now we would love to see Sanji getting wins on these type of characters, right? So Sky Battle against Mars would be a lot more fun. As for Egghead being top 1, right now it is my favorite post-time skip arc. I'm going to let it conclude, and then I will place it in my general favorite arcs. But it is high. It is very, very high, because right now it's doing everything, right? The from the Kuma Bonnie storyline, again, it a lot hinges for me on how that concludes, because right now it's pretty much perfect for me. It's my favorite backstory, one of my favorite, if not my favorite character storyline ever, Kuma's. It's just 99% there. To me, all Oda has to do is just tap it in. You know, just tap it in. Just tap it in. Let the man die. Heroic sacrifice, whatever. Tap it in and be done with it. I feel like there is still that unfortunate gaping potential that Oda might just not be able to go through with it. What if Kuma gets his mind back, rides off into the sunset with Bonnie? I still don't believe that's going to happen, just because even Vegapunk is urging, like, Bonnie, she's got nowhere to go. She has to go join the Straw Hat crew. So I feel like we are at the end of the road for Kuma, I hope. But if he taps that in, right, then for me it'll be the perfect emotional narrative center of the arc. Then on top of that, the stakes have been escalating and escalating, so we're getting a really, really high stakes, it's getting to be a very high tension climax. It's getting there. The Straw Hats are all getting pretty serious and pretty invested. Even Luffy, he's not laughing in such this chapter that much, because, you know, shit's getting pretty real. And just the fights that we might be posed to get, and the unpredictability of the entire conclusion to it, and then the story lore-wise ramifications that we might be able to get from Vegapunk. I think everything is just... And then if you start counting the outside arc stuff of, like, Shanks, Garp, Aokiji, Sabo at the Reverie, all that stuff, it's just such a phenomenal storyline. Such a phenomenal storyline. I could easily see it being top 3, top 4 for me by the end of it all. Yeah, continuing going. Kino the Far, thanks for the 5. Quit my job, Morj. Oh, shit, man. Your life is quite the roller coaster. Chapter in Morj stream made me happy. I'm happy I can deliver for you on a Friday, man. Peter gives, would you love me? Would you love me if I was a worm vibes. That's funny. Will we lose all the Gorosei this arc? I don't think so. I think that this is a perfect... I think Oda set this up perfectly, in the sense that the Straw Hats need to get a win this arc, but it can't be at the expense of the Gorosei, because the Gorosei probably have to be saved as final villains in the story, right? Which is why we're getting the setup of the 10-minute timer, and the rule is just, like, the Straw Hats need to hold out for that time. Normally it's the reverse, right, where there's a timer, Straw Hats need to defeat all the villains so that they can then stop Doomsday, right? Here it's not the case. They don't have to defeat anybody. It's set up in a very specific manner. They don't have to defeat anyone. They just need to not be defeated. They need to hold out, hold them off for 10 minutes, and then they can get the fuck out of here, right? So to me, that suggests that it's the perfect setup for the Gorosei to get to flex their abilities, the Straw Hats to still get a symbolic win and do well, but not defeat the Gorosei, so the Gorosei remain a threat that need to be taken on once the Straw Hats are, and actually defeated once the Straw Hats are stronger down the line. Yeah, I think just a lot lines up there. Personally. And Crust, thanks for being a Pirate King tier member for 7 months, man. Awesome to finally... Awesome to everyone get excited. I agree with Ancrust. It is awesome to finally see another one of the 5 flying type devil fruits. You don't see these too often. Certainly can't think of 5 others. Dude, Oda, for someone as imaginative as he is, who just has such a wide variety, like, just his mind is always exploding with ideas. At least we can all tell that from reading the story. For him to say something so bold early on, like 5 flying devil fruits, is insane in retrospect. Like, what was he thinking? Like, did he even have the 5 thought out? Did he actually think he'd only think of 5 more over the course of the story? It's just really funny to me. Have you caught up on the past couple Chainsaw Man chapters? I think I'm 1 or 2 behind. Remember to read Fire Punch, Undead Unluck, and Sakamoto Days. Oh shit, Undead Unluck I'm gonna pick up later. Fire Punch I still really want to read soon. I'm gonna do it. I've just been so shorthanded on free time lately. Usually I only have mental space to be doing one thing when I have free time, so for me I've still been playing Tears of the Kingdom whenever I get free time. The Zelda game. But I could just take a day to read Fire Punch at some point. So, past couple Chainsaw Man chapters. So I loved the section, like, what was I'm one or two chapter. I think I'm one chapter behind on Chainsaw Man. I've not read the most recent chapter, the Asa chapter, without spoiling anything. I've not read that, but everything that happened in the last several chapters before that, fucking phenomenal. Got me back on board the Chainsaw Man train. I think I need to reread part 2. I do think the pacing and just flow of setting things up and direction of character stuff got a little bit messy at some point, but I think it really, really came together in one of the best little stints of Chainsaw Man writing ever, over a certain few chapters. So yeah, I hard recommend Chainsaw Man to everybody. It's phenomenal. I think the anime has gotten nowhere near to the point that is the exciting stuff. So some people still only know Chainsaw Man through the anime. The really good stuff is yet to come. Also, let's get the stream lights up to 300 real quick. And Matt, welcome to the Pirate King tier. Thank you for joining. Thanks for the support. Watch out for the Pirate. You get weekly podcasts. So Yonko tier podcasts. Those are obviously for you. But you also get the Pirate King tier podcast, which will come out once a month, where you submit you submit your questions and I answer it in great detail, basically, over the course of a podcast. So thanks for joining. Appreciate it. Nick C, thanks for the 10. I wonder why Fuchsia Village is the only island shown in 1109 to not have a visual Dendenmushi. Like, why specifically does Oda not want them to see Gear 5th? I don't buy that it's just that they're too poor. I do genuinely think that it might be... I do think that genuinely it's one of those things where it's just a world-building thing where it's... like, it really is supposed... Like, Fuchsia Village, I feel like, is really supposed to be a tiny little corner of the world, like a tiny little village in the far corner of the world. It's just far removed from everything else in the grand scheme of things. So the idea that they don't have a visual Dendenmushi, it does feel right. I don't think it's literally because they don't want to see Luffy in Gear 5th, because they've seen him in the bounty posters and things like that. I don't think it's that. I think it literally is just like a little added touch, which is just of realism to the world, which is just that, yeah, this little village really doesn't know anything much about what's going on in the outside grand scheme of things, so it kind of just reflects that. Muglatan, thanks a lot. Hoki and Bakutsu so obscure nothing comes up on Google. I don't think it's obscure. I think it literally doesn't exist, because if it's obscure it would still come up, but there's nothing that comes up on Google, which means that it's just not... I think these are things that Oda invented. What I was kind of seeing on Twitter is that these are, like, Bakutsu is kind of a, like, skeleton horse, which is just something that Oda's essentially making up. Yeah. So I kind of like that, because, well, I don't necessarily like that or dislike that. It's just like, okay, Oda's going to do his own thing. It's like, it's a unique zone that he's going to make up the abilities for. Also, let's get the stream lights up to 300 real quick. Gunner455, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 10 months, man. Hey, Morj, thanks for all you do. I prefer the Friday streams because I can listen at work during this time to get through the day. Thoughts on the Gorosei? Yeah, I also wonder, like, even if I did Friday streams in the evening, how many people are going to be able to catch a Friday night stream? Like, a lot of you guys may not be able to consistently do that. I really don't want to bump Friday streams to the evening, so the other time slot I'm thinking is just maybe semi-evening, but not necessarily night. I just don't want to make that something that I'm penciling in for my Friday evenings. But Friday during the day, if people can listen at work, I hope that that's something that you all are able to find fun and entertaining. Thoughts on the Gorosei? My thoughts on the Gorosei are just that I think that Oda's hardcore delivering with how exciting these characters are. I mean, there's nothing... You know what's funny is that... So in general... So think about this, right? In general, with villain groups, right? You kind of see this across... So like, let's take a look back real quick at past villain groups that the Strats have had to fight. Major ones. Baroque Works. CP9. The Priests. Doflamingo's family, King Queen Jack, right? King Queen Jack, Tobiropo, Beast Pirates, etc. Right? There's always a bit of a cartoonish element to them, and that's fine. That's One Piece, right? It's One Piece. It is what it is, right? Like Baroque Works, you got some super serious characters like Mr. 1, but then you got like Mr. 2, who's really goofy, like like Mr. 4 Duo, which is really like they're comedic, with their banter, the Mole Woman, etc. Even Mr. 3, some funny shit happens with him. Like, there's that vibe, right? CP9, Lucci's very serious, but Kaku's this giraffe. Jabura, like, we introduced him after he's been rejected. First of all, this is really funny, which is like, Jabura is like, like a top-ranked CP9 agent. Like, one of the most badass killers in the world, or at least in the Blue Sea, right? Probably one of the highest-ranking people on that, like highest ranking people period on that island, right? and he got shot down by some some random woman in the. I just think that's funny. You know, I just think it's funny that that's the way we're introducing them. But point being, right? Like CP9, same thing, right? Doflamingo family, they've got a bunch of silly stuff going on there. I think Virgo is really the only actually like seriously depicted character in the Doflamingo family. Beast Pirates, Queen was a fucking meme for the majority of that arc. Queen was a meme. Like the Toby Ropo, their banter, they're kind of on the goofy side in some ways, you know, Ulti and Pepe, all that stuff. Like, the point I'm getting at is that the Gorosei are this rare group that Oda's not taking lightly at all. They have not changed one iota in terms of the seriousness that Oda tends to, seriousness, formality, just genuine composure that Oda has written them with from the beginning of the story, right? There's no jokes with the Gorosei around. And again, it's One Piece. I get, like, jokes are funny, etc., but like something does have to be said for the impact of chapters like this where villains like this are introduced. And it's the first time, this is the first time in One Piece I can think of that we're getting a full villain group like this where it genuinely feels like Oda's going for something sort of Berserk-esque or like serious manga-esque, you know what I mean? Like just across the board, there's no gags or anything like that. It is just like every single one of these is meant to seem like a terrifying monstrosity, right? And it's supposed to carry that sort of weight, right? I think that's cool. I guess one of the other things you could say are like maybe the the three admirals or something, but I'm talking more so in terms of characters that the Straw Hats are actually fighting. So this is the first time we're in an arc where the 5 opponents that the Straw Hats are fighting, this whole villain group, there's no joke about them. Like each one of them is meant to invoke a certain feeling, right? Like bring a certain weight, a certain sense of threat, danger, etc. I think that's interesting. I think because Oda doesn't do that much, because we're used to certain villain groups, it carries a little more weight when the Gorosei are being written like this, you know? It just really, really like hammers in the idea that, yeah, these guys are going to be the final villains that have to be defeated. Like this is endgame energy, you know? Just a thought. Miss Yonko from Miniwoo. Let me see. What was it? Oh, thank you, Virgil Hawkins. Thanks again, man. Hi, Morj. This is 7-month Yonko tier member, Minwoo Huang. Hi, Morj. Are you ever going to upload the Morj Unleashed channel again? Always thought it was super fun. I love doing Morj Unleashed stuff, but it became a huge additional little time. Like, it's a really, really fun channel. I still encourage people to go check it out. I think a lot of the stuff on there is still really funny. Once in a while, I'll go back and watch a video from it. But it became difficult because we're coordinating with 3 people who are the editors, and they kind of started it. Like we worked with them on it as sort of like a passion project for fun. But at the same time, like they're tight on time because they've all got jobs and like real life stuff too. And then for me and my editor, we're having to do additional work too with like working on thumbnails for it, like concepts. Like we kind of had to plan a little bit, like, okay, what's the next stream going to be so that it can be shaped into a Morj Unleashed thing. We have to review the videos that they send back over and sometimes make our own edits and stuff. So it was just a lot of small extra work that we thought we could handle that just sort of added up and added up and added up. Unfortunately, yeah, just it became a hard channel to maintain. And one of the things that you guys might not realize, but that was a point in time. So Morj Unleashed and Manga Morj were going at the same time. And you might not notice, but if you go back and look at the normal Morj channel at that point in time, the viewership kind of dipped during that phase because we had to take a step back and realize that I couldn't put in as much mental, like you only have so much time. I couldn't maintain the quality of videos. I had to kind of cut corners a little bit with the main Morj channel for a little period of time to keep the Manga Morj and Morj Unleashed channels like fed. And it just became very difficult after a bit, so I had to make the call at a certain point, like, okay, what can I actually be doing? It's like, let's get the focus back on the main Morj channel first. And so then that helped the main Morj channel quite a bit, basically get back on track. So yeah, it just is what it is. At a certain point, you gotta realize like what your own limitations are in terms of work. Flame of the Spirit, thanks for the 5. Lol, Zoro has to be stalled because he's too bad with directions to get where he needs to be on his own. L, right hand man. I don't know if that's necessarily what it is, but he did need, he's going to need some guidance to get back to the rest of the group. Rock Nation Brunch. It's funny that even with observation hockey, he's probably not going to be good at directions. Or he isn't, Rock Nation Brunch, thanks for the 5. Did you notice that Sanji reminded Zoro to get serious? Similar to how Zoro would do for Luffy in the past. Great chapter. I don't know. Well, it's not like Zoro... It's not the same, necessarily. Because, like, Luffy was literally goofing around and Zoro was telling him to get serious. Whereas Sanji was more like, try hard. Like, you can do better than that, Because, like, I don't think Zoro's goofing around and, like, giggling and stuff and having fun with Lucci. It's just more like Sanji's kind of just like, come on, man. You're struggling with this. You could do better than that. So it forced Zoro to, like, actually just turn it up a notch, But it is similar in the sense that Sanji goading him did make Zoro flip a switch, for sure. Funnily enough, Zoro telling Luffy to get serious did not make Luffy flip a switch right there. But, it was probably a good reminder overall. Carson Cock, thanks for the 10. Strauts will be overwhelmed. Kuma's last act is teleporting Strauts and Bonnie away. That would be cool. I would love that. Similar to Sabaody. That would be great. I would love that. Definitely would love that, because as long as the Strauts can succeed in getting Vegapunk's message off, then it's okay if they're overwhelmed at the end, because they still won. It's just they needed an escape route. Bonnie joins Strauts. Kuma saves Nika and Bonnie as a heroic death. Love this shit. Love it. Love all this. Luffy now hates world government figure, unlike in Dressrosa and Skypiea. Yes, definitely adds a lot more to, especially because Luffy will understand more in that moment that, like, Kuma was the one that saved them, I mean, he understands that in general, but just seeing Kuma's heroic sacrifice, etc. We saw, like, what Pedro's sacrifice did for Luffy, all those sort of things. It just makes everything more personal for Luffy and the Strauts against the world government. Love all that. Not just world government, Celestial Dragons specifically. Frederick Leo, thanks for the 10. What if God's Knights go to each of the Straw Hats aligned kingdom and fight their strongest warriors, i.e. Momo, Kiros, etc.? This would be a great payoff and also give the finale a truly global scale. Holy shit, I never thought about something. That's so cool. That's such a cool idea. Because those are matchups for... Yeah, that's such a cool idea. I love that. Matchups for all of the major allied nations that the Strauts have made so far. Kiros... Oh, shit. What have I been on right now? Yeah, just like Kiros... The Mermaid Princes? I don't know. I don't know if anyone's... Maybe all 3 Mermaid Princes and Neptune could fight one God Knight or something. But yeah, Momonosuke, Yamato, maybe the Dukes or something. Oh, Carrot's in charge of Zona. But I like the idea overall. Really, really great idea. Bo Hancock could get a fight. I don't know if they would go to each of their allied nations, but more so in the final war, maybe we could see each of the God's Knights being taken by one of the Straw Hats allies. I love that idea. Christian Barraza, thanks for the 10. Saturn and Venus are the only ones that look like yokai, in my opinion. The rest look like creatures from Strong World, which I dig. Yeah, we took a shot, which was, we did a stream a couple weeks back, which was, what are the Gorosei going to be? And we went with the assumption that they would all be yokai, just for the sake of trying to narrow things down. It's impossible to actually guess everything, because, like, who would have guessed that one of them would be a sandworm, Who would have guessed that one of them would be a skeleton horse thing that doesn't really exist in mythology? Like, there's no such thing as a fucking Bakotsu. The rest look like creatures from Strong World, which I dig. Venus's hybrid form is lamest hybrid since Wano. Really? Take your pick. I thought that Venus's looked the coolest to me, personally. I kind of want to do a quick poll. Let me do a poll. Which Gorosei looks coolest? I'm gonna leave... Which Gorosei Zoan looks coolest? Let's say just Zoans, because... I mean, with Saturn, we haven't seen full Zoan. I mean, just interpret how you interpret it, okay? Who looks coolest, alright? Mercury, Venus, Juro, Mars... I'm gonna leave Jupiter out of it, just because I think we can agree that the Sandworm's not the coolest, right? I think everyone can get on board with that. I think. I'm gonna leave Jupiter out of it. I think we can agree that the worm doesn't look as cool. I'll tell you guys who I've got in a second. I've personally got Venus or Mars. I think Venus is the coolest to me. Just a little bit more unique, and then I've got Mars after. It's funny to see Saturn so far down because if you guys remember, like, just think about how cool that is that Saturn is so far down the list. Maybe it's just because we're used to him now. But if you guys remember, when Saturn was first revealed, everybody was like, this right here is one of the most badass designs Oda has ever done. Like, everyone was flipping their shit over Saturn's reveal. Everyone was saying that this is one of the coolest character introductions ever. This is one of the most badass designs ever, right? So with Saturn, we might have a case of just like we gotten used to him, and so shiny new things have popped up, right? But at the same time, you could also just say that maybe just indicates that the new designs are even cooler than Saturn, and Oda just dropped several amazing designs all at the same time. Some people are saying that Jupiter's the coolest. Yeah. Kenny's saying no one thinks that ugly pig one is cool. Yeah, I wouldn't think so. Just threw it in though anyway. Behanor, thanks a lot. Venus instantly got to disabling Pacifista. Mars is probably trying to kill the Strahds. Jupiter is helping Saturn versus Luffy. Warcury might be retrieving the Seraphim. I like how they act this chapter as a crew. It does go to some hive mind, it does add to the hive mind idea, which is just like they might just be all on the same wavelength of what needs to be done. On top of that, though, like I was talking already about just the vibe that the Gorosei bring, which is very, very... There is a weight and seriousness and heaviness to them, right? When they arrive, it's just no jokes, no goofing around. It helps that they don't banter with each other like a lot of the other villain groups do, because that does add a bit of a comedic One Piece slant to it, but they don't. They're all business, and I think that that's doubled down upon by the fact that they were so efficient in their decision-making this chapter, right? Just seeing them come in and right away get to work, wordlessly, them and Venus Jura taking out all the Pacifista right away, Mars immediately establishing himself as a threat, Jupiter nearly catching Luffy right away. That's all really, really great, right? It's not just the design, it's not the tone, the atmosphere, etc. It's also the fact that they just don't mess around, and they're immediately shown to be very, very competent, right? Without having to do too much or explain. It's all silent, it's all wordless. They're just competent. They know what to do. They're executing. It's very different than other enemy groups that the Strahds have met. Very, very different. Uncle F, thanks a lot. How far is the Wano video? There's been no progress made recently. There's just been no progress made recently. I still... Let me move, and then I'll worry about the Wano video again. Let me move, and then I'll worry about the Wano video again. But there's been no progress made recently. It will be done. At some point. For sure. But I can't give a timeline for it. I just know that I'm not going to have time in the next 2 weeks. I said last month I can't do it last month. I will probably not have it done by the end of March. But there's one last leg of it that I basically have to do. I just need a month, basically, to do it. A month. Justin Hong, thanks for the 5. Can only imagine if Sabo knows that the demons he had to run from are targeting his brother personally. Yeah, I mean, I don't know if Sabo knows. I think Sabo would be like, Luffy can handle it. I don't know. Just the fate that he probably has in Luffy is very, very high. It would be interesting to see his reactions and what he actually thinks of the strength of the Gorosei, or how he appraised them. Salin South, thanks for the 2. What do you think of the new cover series? Holy shit, I actually skimmed right past the cover. What happened? What happened? Let me see. Finding out the cover right now. Oh, it's Yamato and Momonosuke. I didn't realize Momonosuke is Yamato's height now. For some reason, I didn't realize that earlier. I'm going to travel all over Wano, just like Oden says Yamato. Okay, hopefully something comes of this. Some character stuff, please. Please detach from the Oden persona soon, please. Duck20, thanks for the 5. I think the Grim Reaper is going to come into play for Zoro, and the Reaper did something with Zoro's Conqueror's Haki. I don't think that's that literal, personally. I might be wrong, but I think that was just a one-time thing that represents Zoro being close to death. Josh Nesbitt, thanks for the 5. The 3 Vegapunks in the vid are dead Vegapunks, even in the same fits they died in. Maybe their consciousness are broadcasting live within Punk Records. You think the Vegapunk's consciousness is get streamed back to Punk Records. That would be interesting. That is an interesting idea. Because we're losing, in theory, parts of Vegapunk's personality, like who he is. Unless it is all being connected back somewhere. Straw Hat Shaco, thanks for being a member for 17 months. Happy Friday, Buford. That's really out there. You trying to grow a full beard? No, I generally don't like having a full beard. I might shave this off in the next week or so, or keep it trimmed. I could keep it trimmed with Manscaped, because I do have a really good beard hedge trimmer. That is honestly what I've been using because before Manscaped I would like just do a thing like I shave my beard completely, and then just let it grow out a certain amount and then shave it again. But now I can actually set it to certain settings and keep it that way. So I might let it grow out a bit, then shave it all off, or just get it back to this length. Basically, I like it either clean shaven around this point. Hassie, thanks for the 5. Hey Morj, how do you feel about the Gorsei forcibly accepting Nirvana as Saturn to maintain their reputation and cover up for a potential Saturn death? Ooh, that would be interesting. Although I don't know how much the outside world would even find out about, like, how would they even know that one of the Gorsei died. The Gorsei I don't think are out and about in general. I mean, they even talked about how, like, Saturn was even talking about how he hadn't been down to the surface in a long time. So I don't think they need a Saturn lookalike to maintain appearances. But it is an interesting idea. Behano, thanks a lot. Gorsei get the Seraphim, York, and Motherflame back, and kill Vegapunk, but the Straw Hats escape and give Kuma a Viking funeral. To me, that arc kind of ending in a draw between World Government and Straw Hats. Yes, I would really like that. I would still view I think in terms of battle and goals achieved, it would be kind of a draw. But I think Vegapunk's message getting out to the world would be actually much more of a win for the Straw Hats than anything else, because it could be kind of a draw, because then the world government is still getting their hands on the Motherflame and stuff, so they can do their damage control, but the damage would have been done to them, right? And the Straw Hats would not have actually lost anything. They lose Kuma, but Kuma, they just fucking, like, Kuma's not one of their own, you know? It's sad they lose Kuma, they lose Vegapunk, but ultimately the Straw Hats come out with the world government being the one reeling from damage control, right? So I would view it as, like, in terms of the battle itself, probably a draw, right? But then, in terms of consequences for both groups, probably the world government reeling more from the symbolic loss. Dex, thanks a lot for the 5. Need a Zoro and Nusjuro interaction. Shodai dialogue, Hell Underworld lore, and potential Ryuma and Wano Country of Gold mention would be interesting. That would be all phenomenal. I don't know if we're going to get all that, but it would be fucking crazy if we at least... I believe they will at least interact. Hopefully a little bit of a fight, so we get a little bit of an idea of how strong Venus Juro is, maybe. And I mean, obviously he's crazy strong. The Pacifista feat is one of the more insane things ever. This is gonna sound crazy, but like, tell me this is crazy. Is the Pacifista feat of just zipping across the entire island and taking out all these Pacifistas like that in seconds? Is it not a more impressive speed feat than anything Kizaru's ever done? Like, am I crazy to say that? Because generally with Kizaru, he has to do this stuff where, like, he puts his hand together and then, like, a mirror, like a beam of light comes out and it bounces and reflects everywhere, and then he travels through that and gets around. And, you know, like, Kizaru's done cool stuff. Like, he blitzed, like, Apu and stuff like that with that. But, like, am I crazy? Like, what Venus Juro just did seems like a much more efficient use of speed. Like, he kind of just did the sort of thing that I would expect. The way he was written this chapter and the way he used his speed was kind of like how, hypothetically, Kizaru's speed should work in general, right? Like, just being a speed of light man, zipping across everywhere, doing all sorts of stuff. But it's kind of like Kizaru's just never actually written like that, you know? I don't know. Kenny says he beat a bunch of bots, big deal. I'm not saying this makes him stronger than Kizaru. I'm saying that in terms of how he actually used his speed, is this not the most, like, when has Kizaru done something like this, you know? Like, isn't this how most people, to me, this is how I imagine a speed of light man actually kind of working, which would be zipping around all across the island in an instant, being able to take out characters very quickly. Kizaru doesn't actually ever do that. To me, this was kind of what I would hope Kizaru would do, you know? I don't know. Yeah, Dex says he ran. It's not crazy, to be honest. He ran halfway through the island in seconds. Okay, so let's put it this way. If we didn't know that Kizaru, like if Kizaru didn't have the tag of like light added to his thing, right? Then I think just saying straight up, looking at it straight up, you would just be like, yeah, what Venus Jura just did is a more impressive speed feat than anything Kizaru's done. But because we know that Kizaru's ability is technically light, then we kind of just automatically attribute to him like, well, no, he's got to be the fastest because he's speed of light, right? So to me, I get that, right? Speed of light. I doubt Venus Juro is actually faster. I get that. I'm just saying in terms of what was shown, is this not more impressive speed-wise than anything that Kizaru's actually done? I don't know. Like, we've never seen Kizaru just blitz through an entire battlefield like this. Like, not at Marine Ford, not at any, like, you know what I mean? Like, if you put Venus Juro at Marine Ford and you gave him like 10 seconds, wouldn't pretty much the entire Whitebeard Pirates be done? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know. That's all I'm saying. I'm not saying... Okay, let's put it this way. I know that Kizaru should technically be faster. What I'm saying is this, basically. I know that Kizaru should technically be faster than Venus Juro, but what we just saw from Venus Juro is just, to me, just comparing what we've seen from Kizaru, to me, Venus Juro just did something that I'd hoped we would see from Kizaru this entire time, that he's just never been written to be able to, or to be able to do, or just never been written to do. You know what I'm saying? That's it. I don't know. June says Kizaru ain't got the same production budget as Venus Law. I agree that, okay, yes. Kizaru's got to be faster. He just has to be faster his speed of flight. But I don't think I've ever seen him use his speed in this sort of manner like Venus Juro. It's just never been written like that. I guess we just say he's never been written like that. I do think that this is the... Like, to me, this is a cooler speed feat than anything Kizaru's ever done that I can think of off the top of my head. Because, again, to me, what Venus Juro just did this chapter was kind of what I'd been hoping we would get to see Kizaru do at any of the other points in the story, right? Like, can someone tell me, like if you take... Because Kizaru didn't do this at Marine Ford. And keep in mind, like, each pacifista is significantly stronger than the average... How do I say this? Like, you know what I mean? Like, if you just took Venus Juro and dropped him on Marine Ford and he did this, then the Whitebeard Pirates would be pretty much down to... Like, everyone except Marco and fucking Jozu and Vista would probably be, like, fucking done. You know? Pretty quickly. Is that not right? GDN says Morj forgot about Kizaru literally blitzing Snake Man from a distance so massive that Egghead Island itself looks small. Yeah, I would agree. I would agree. Okay, I guess... Let me rectify then. Let's say that's the fastest, like, straight line speed blitz, I guess, that Kizaru's ever done. I think in terms of general efficiency of using his speed, I feel like Kizaru has never been written to do something quite like this. You get what I'm saying? Because, like, if he was written to do something like this, then the Marine Ford battle would be done really fucking fast. You know what I'm saying? That's pretty much it. That's all I'm saying. I'm not trying to say that, like, it wouldn't make sense that Venus Juro is faster than Kizaru. That should be Kizaru's thing. And the, like, some of the moments that Kizaru's had where he really, like, revs up and goes his top speed, like the Snake Man moment, that makes sense. That's probably faster than anything that's faster than anything Venus Juro should be able to do. But I'm just saying maybe use of speed. Maybe use of speed, I find this moment to be personally more effective or efficient than anything that Kizaru normally does. I think that's basically it. Mike Brennan says he'd get blocked by Jozu or some shit. Yeah, so if like Kizaru, if you think Kizaru's slow enough to get blocked by Jozu, then I think that that's pretty bad, right? Like, the point would be that nobody should be fast enough to stop Kizaru. Dex, no, we covered this. Kalal Brown, thanks for the 10. Hey Morj, what if Vegapunk is bluffing and there is no announcement and his real plan is to reveal the Gorsei true forms to the world? that would be cool, but like, I mean, that would be good, but I don't like how much would that really change. I guess it depends on how Oda wants to write it. If he writes civilians being really impacted by seeing that, then that's one thing. I could see that being a huge cherry on top thing, like Vegapunk's revealing a bunch of stuff and he's showing what the Gorosei look like. I could see that being good. If it's kind of just like, look, the Gorosei are actually really ugly people. Look at how ugly and freakish they are. And then everybody fucking freaks out, and then the whole world decides to rebel because they have devil fruits. Like, to me, it would be kind of forced if it's just like, look, they have devil fruits, and the devil fruits are like ugly devil fruits. And then the whole world's panicking, and they're like, oh my god, devil fruit users are, like, our politicians are devil fruit users. And the devil fruits look ugly. We gotta rebel. I think that would be kind of forced. Just personally. Because it's like, I don't know. You know, Sengoku's also a mythical Zoan user. The admirals are all Zoan users. Devil fruit users, right? So would the big reveal just be like that the Gorosei happen to have ugly looking devil fruits? It would just be a little forced to me if that's the reason that the entire world decides to rebel. It's like, we draw the line at fucking ugly ass politicians. It's basically, I don't know, kind of funny. Blazing Blue, thanks for the 20. Sup, Morj, insane chapter to get for my birthday tomorrow. Oh, happy birthday, man. That double page spread of all the Gorosei was peak. I definitely agree. Also, Dorian Brogy decapitating Jupiter for me is personal agenda. Gas for Mr. 3. Keep it up as always, Mr. Morj. Yeah, we can scale Mr. 3 to essentially above Gorosei level at this point. The Dorian... The Dorian Brogy shit, the fact that they were fucked up by Mr. 3 all the way back then is funny. I mean, they weren't, like, it was bombs and stuff going off, but, you know, just the fact that they were even in that situation with Mr. 3 way back when is just hilarious. It's essentially, it's kind of like Mr. 3 capturing, like, Kaido and Big Mom, basically. I'm not saying Dorian Brogy are equal to Kaido and Big Mom, I'm just saying, like, they're fucking up there, you know what I mean? Or, like, it's like Mr. 3 capturing, like, 2 admirals or something like that, almost. Who knows? I'm not gonna guess where Dorian Brogy fall. Like, maybe I'm upscaling them a bit too much, but you get what I'm, like, they're fucking high on the scale. Sleeping Danger, thanks a lot. Gear 5th should have been revealed in Egghead, not Wano. I disagree with that. I do think that Wano could have definitely used a bit more, just, like, Wano was just so centric about the idea of Joy Boy, return of Joy Boy, etc. Like, this is the return grounds for Joy Boy. That's built into the story quite a bit. I do think a few more things, like, I think if you move Who's Who talking about Nika to somewhere just a little bit earlier in the arc or something, and just maybe some mention of the Gomu Gomu no Mi earlier in the arc, so that it's not just all happening literally while Luffy's fighting Kaido. I think that's something that's always bothered me, which is, to me, it would just be like, if we go the entire Namek arc without hearing the word Super Saiyan once, and then Goku's fighting Frieza, and then characters start saying, oh, well, there's Super Saiyan and shit like that. Like, I don't know. And then Goku just gets it. That's the thing for me. I would prefer if some of the dialogue about it is just moved a little bit early. So it's not literally in the last 2 minutes. Not last 2 minutes, that's exaggerating, but not literally when the final fight is happening. That's all I'll say, basically. But I think that I think Wano is definitely the far better place for it to be. Because Gear 5th is about liberation, etc. You want it to be in an arc where there's a people that need to be liberated, right? Egghead Island, it's just some fucking empty-ass island with just Vegapunk, right? It wouldn't carry the same thing. It would mean something for, like, Bonnie, but that's about it. JWP, thanks for the 5. Interesting that we didn't get Devil Fruit text box reveals for Gorosei, just yokai names. Yeah, that is a really good point. I didn't even fucking think about that. That's a really good point. That goes to what I was saying earlier, but a video that I dropped a while ago of, like, the possibility that the Gorosei are just created by Imu. I don't know. That's definitely possible. Talha says, Morj, TCB is in chat. Oh, TCB, we have questions for you. Don't leave. TCB says, morning, Morj, hope you're well. How's Jay holding up? Okay, oh, Jay's my editor, by the way. For some moment I thought of JD Legend. I told you guys that TCB Scans, they interviewed with us at one point to be the image finders. TCB, are chapters coming out on Thursdays or Fridays going forward? This is very important for the people to know. Everybody asked TCB here. No, not in a mean way. We all respect the work, etc. that you do, but we're all very curious here. Are chapters coming out Thursdays or Fridays? Kenny says there are citizens, to be fair, on Egghead. You know what I mean. Like, when did we even fucking see them? We saw them, obviously, at some point, but Luffy liberating the random citizens of Egghead versus, like, all the Wano citizens that we spend the whole arc getting to know. I don't know. It's different. Jay, thanks for the Growth Stonks, thanks for the 2. Emu is a Namazu catfish yokai. Wait, no, I'm skipping ahead a bit. Okay, I'll catch the ones I missed in a second. Emu's a Namazu catfish yokai. I mean, it could just be something that Oda fucking made up, like the Bakotsu. I'm gonna look up Namazu catfish. That seems kind of random to me. Namazu catfish. Giant underground catfish type thing. Alright, I'm gonna have to look into this later. I could actually see it. If you look it up, it does actually kind of maybe fit. JWP, thanks for the 5. Interesting. No, we covered this. Iyunoluwa Ayeno Lua Tugbobu. Thank you very much for the 5. First super. Been a patron since 2020. Holy shit, thank you, man. I appreciate it. I appreciate the added support here on the stream. Do you hold any significance to Jupiter being the odd man out in terms of Eastern influences in his form? I do. So I have a video coming out next week, talking about generally the Gorosei, kind of hierarchy of strength among them as far as it seems. Also the potential matchups, etc., that seem likely for each of them. In that video, I think that there's reasons that you may see that I think that Jupiter might be the least significant of the Gorosei, and Oda might have slightly different plans for him. And because of that, Oda, to start with, if you go back to the Gorosei reveals during the throne room scene, right? Jupiter's is the only one that we don't get like an actually defined silhouette of. So it seems like Oda may from the beginning have been kind of vague in his thought process of what he wanted Jupiter to be. And if you look, like, even the little silhouette we get is nothing like a giant worm. So I think that just because Jupiter might have a slightly different purpose in the story, and again, wait for next week's video for me to elaborate, I think it's possible that it was never that important what Jupiter's Zoan fruit is going to be, or like Oda was maybe a little bit more nebulous, like he had a clearer idea for the other ones because he had a clearer idea of matchups and such. And so finally, when it comes time to do the Gorosei reveals, yeah, Jupiter's isn't as Eastern influenced, but that could literally be because Oda was influenced by, like, he saw the Dune movie and was like, okay, that'd be cool. Like, literally, I think that's genuinely a possibility because it's a fucking sandworm. So because Jupiter was kind of like always a miscellaneous, Oda can do whatever he wants with him kind of pick, then at some point he's like, okay, I've got all these other ideas for these other 4. Jupiter, I think it'll be this cool thing that I recently saw. I think that's possible. Isho, thanks for the 5. The sense of scale this double page spread portrayed was insane. Audibly had to go, yo, what? Yeah, and it helps that Oda has not done one of these in a long ass time. Booga says he really just isn't gonna look at chat again, lol. Wait, what happened? What happened? What are people saying? Okay, sorry. I do think Saturn is the weakest. I mean, Jupiter's the weakest out of the ones that are not going to, because I think Saturn goes down this arc, but I think Jupiter might be the weakest beyond that. Like in terms of the ones being saved for later down the line. TCB says likely Friday, but for the time being may change on circumstances. Okay, all right, that's good to know. That's good to know. All right, thanks TCB, appreciate it. Jay says it's clear the Gorosei have tiers of power levels between each other. Horsemen having the speed that Saturn lacks proves that alone, in my view. I mean, I don't think all the Gorosei are the same strength, but I don't know if it's going to be like giant differences just yet. It's hard to say. One thing is that in terms of how they've interacted, it's always felt like they're close to equals in some sense. You know what I mean? Like, there's no sense of any of them talking down to one another ever. It always feels very egalitarian, very much on the same level. I think if you went back like 200 chapters or something and asked somebody like, who do you think the strongest Gorosei is? I don't know who would have gotten a good answer because Oda just made it very, very deliberately homogenous in how he's portrayed them. I do think that, Venus Juro having the speed that Saturn lacks, that is one really big thing. But then Saturn has other abilities like the eye stuff that he's done, being able to hold people in place. There's stuff that like that, right? But I would agree that just right off the bat, to me, Venus Juro seems stronger than Saturn. Mr. MMF2, thanks. Hey, Morj, great chapter. Do we take another L with the Gorsey prediction? Also, is Kizaru out? We did take an L with the Gorsey prediction, but that was a scheduled L. That was like, we weren't gonna guess that because we went into it. The purpose of the stream was fun, right? We're trying to figure some stuff out, see what fits. And I went into it with like, let's set some ground rules. Let's just assume that they're all gonna be yokai because otherwise it just becomes too fucking difficult to guess. We could not have guessed that Venus Juro would be a Bakotsu. Bakotsus don't even exist. I don't know who would have guessed that Jupiter would be a giant sandworm. Like, that's very difficult, So playing the yokai game of trying to narrow down which yokai they could be, that was fun. I don't think our picks were bad. I think our picks were pretty good across the board, but, it is what it is. Also, is Kizaru out? I think for the moment, maybe. I think for the moment he might be. But I do think that we're set for a big Kizaru moment down the line before this arc ends. Justin Holland, thanks for the 5. You missed my first $5 super chat. Wait, what? Second thing, strangely, Ace was the only brother who never even hear an elder? Who never even hear an elder? Is that another example of lost potential? I'm gonna assume you mean like Ace never encountered one of the Gorsei. I'm gonna assume that's what you mean. But if that's the case, then I don't think that's a big deal, because like I don't think Ace's story ever got far enough to like being like about taking on the Celestial Dragons or anything like that, you know what I mean? I don't the first super. Fuck, I did miss the first super. No, I didn't miss. I don't see the first super was can only imagine if Sabo knows that the demons he had to run from are targeting his brother personally. I actually did cover that. I already talked about that one. So I don't think I missed that one unless you're just catching up to that. So I'm sorry if you might have missed that one, but I did cover that one. And that's the last one that I'm seeing from you here. I don't think it's a lost potential, though. I don't think Ace's story... Like, we didn't even get to the point where it's like, okay, realizing that Emu, Celestial Dragons are the main villains of the story. Dick so small, I piss on my balls. Thanks for the 5. Final matchup, Strahd versus Blackbeard Pirates. Dragon and his 5 commanders versus Emu and his 5 elders. Sabo versus Akainu. 9 Grand Fleet reps versus 9 Holy Knights. I don't think Dragon's commanders have any shot whatsoever against the Gorsei. I think that they'd be so ridiculously fucked. It's not even funny. I don't even know if like Sabo at that point in time would be able to take on a Gorsei. Strahd versus Blackbeard Pirates. I feel like Blackbeard Pirates and Emu and the Celestial Dragons, I feel like those are two separate things. So like, if you've got Dragon and all the revolutionaries taking on the world government and all that, and then Luffy doing pirate things like taking on the pirates, I think that's kind of, I don't know. I feel like it'll ultimately also be the Straw Hats taking on the Celestial Dragons too. I don't think the Straw Hats will just be completely separate from the Celestial Dragon conflict. Geo, thanks a lot. Zoro Piece 1111 predictions. Hey, it's possible. It's now officially possible because Zoro's about to make his debut on the broader battlefield next chapter. So there's definitely a good shot for him to do something really big there. Let's get the stream likes up to 400 real quick. Behenut, thanks a lot. Now that I think about it, in less than a year, we went from Gorsei are clowns / Gorsei are just weak politicians to holy shit, they're so scary and hype. They even have fans and agendas now. I don't think we were ever on Gorsei are clowns, but I was definitely on board the train of like, okay, the Gorsei are probably not. I didn't think ever that the Gorsei are Admiral level or potentially even like Yonko level. I felt like, especially because other things were being established, like the Seraphim were being built up. We learned about the Holy Knights, things like that. Like Akainu mentioned them, and we still had the Admirals and everything like that. But then now it's just like, holy shit. Like, I do think that they probably surpassed a lot of people's expectations. I'm sure some people already from the very beginning had the Gorsei as like, no, these will be the final villains. These will be the strongest subordinates to Emu or something. But I do think it took a long time for people to actually open up their minds to the possibility that these are genuinely going to be some of the 5 strongest characters, period. And yeah, they even have fans and agendas now. Yeah, like the agendas for them have really, really taken off. Fodder for hire. Thanks for the 10. Malevolent Morj. I think Oda could have probably made a better stalling device for Zoro than Lucci. Basically, it feels like he stalled him for the gag. Could Zoro just beat Lucci immediately with 3 swords? Look, I don't know. Like, could Zoro... I think, yeah. If Zoro had used one of his strongest attacks right off the bat, yeah. But I also think that it's just complicated because... I don't know, sometimes a character needs to be pushed to that level, you know? Like, we know that Zoro ultimately could one-shot Lucci, actually, if he used something, like the move that he used on Kaido, right? I forget the exact name, but the Ashura move that he used on Kaido, right? Hypothetically, if Zoro pulls that out right off the bat, he probably one-shots Lucci. Hypothetically, if he uses the move that he used on King to win the fight, he probably one-shots Lucci, right? But it's not... at the end of the day, it wasn't a one-shot because it's a mid-diff fight no matter how you spin it, I think. Because at the end of the day, like, those are moves that it seems like take a great deal of effort for him to pull out. He has to be pushed to it or something like that. I don't know. It's kind of like, you know, we've seen shit like this. It happens. Like, just because hypothetically he could, it does... Like, there are characters that Luffy hypothetically could one-shot with Bajrangan, but they would still, like, a character's just not usually going to do something like that right off the bat. You know what I mean? So the general fight is still going to be a longer extended fight. Like, I think of one-shotting more so as when a character can easily take care of another character, right? Without using, like, once you use your strongest ability, then yeah, you're still technically one-shotting, but it just feels a little bit different to me. I don't know. I don't know. The Zoro fight, Zoro versus Lucci, it is what it is. Like, to me, it's just, let's move on at this point. To me, it's not hype the way it finished, because it just took so long, but it's also not embarrassing, because ultimately Zoro could handle Lucci once he really put his back into it, you know? To me, it's just gonna move on. There's cooler shit to happen down the line. Let's see Zoro versus Venus Juro or something like that, you know? Sanji's a Lunarian? K Maya says Shanks versus Kid was a one-shot. I mean, I view that as a genuine one-shot because, like, I mean, you could say, well, Shanks had to use, like, a really strong ability, but to me, it's just, I don't know. I doubt that Divine Departures, like, to me, that's more like, I think it's much more likely that it's more like what Kaido did to Luffy in Act 1, you know? Which is just use a good named attack, done with right away, basically. GDN, thanks for the 5. Kizaru blitzing Snake Man from 1,000 miles away is better, but Venus, I don't think it's 1,000 miles away. I mean, it's far, let's say. 1,000 miles away is kind of crazy, right? But Venus has the second best speed feat this arc. Yeah, I guess all I'll say is, like, with Kizaru, he just doesn't normally seem to use his speed as effectively as I feel like you would think. I guess just because the way he's written. And before I used to just chalk it up as, like, that's just the way, like, things, like, that's just the way speed is kind of written in One Piece, if that makes sense. But then the Venus Juro moment is kind of, like, as he was doing all that, I was like, holy shit, like, why isn't Kizaru written doing this sort of stuff, you know? Again, if you had Kizaru just act like that on the Marineford battlefield, the fight would have been over really fucking fast, you know what I mean? Lucky Man, thanks for the 5. What if Vegapunk's message is like an hour long and they stop it halfway right before the spicy parts? It would be a draw that way. That's interesting. I don't think it'd be an hour long, but it would be, that's a good way to, you know, that's an interesting idea. Like, we miss some part of Vegapunk's message, and therefore it's a draw. Eric is saying, Gorosei are scared of Shanks. Well, it's the best part. This is... I don't think this is ever established, but... you know... Shanks fans gonna say what they're gonna say. Muglatan, thanks a lot. Morj, Jupiter in 1085 is just his halfway form. Yeah, I could see that. It still doesn't look anything like a worm, but wouldn't still be kind of big, because a hybrid form usually reflects the size. I feel like Oda just went kind of vague with Jupiter and then ultimately landed on a design that he thought was cool towards the end of it. Josh Nesbitt, thanks for the 5. Sorry I ran out of characters, but the only Vegapunks in the broadcast in 1109 are the same ones who have died. I think Oda did that on purpose. That is a really interesting idea. I did not think about that. That's a really interesting idea. Tony69, thanks for the 6. Another European stream. What a blessing. Yeah, it might be the norm now with Fridays. TCB just came in and said that Fridays might be what we run with going forward. How do you feel about Lucci versus Zoro now? Is this a one-shot or more like a mid-diff? Love from Amsterdam. I view it as I personally consider it a mid-diff. I don't think there's anything wrong with a mid-diff. I don't know. I don't think it's... I think once... It's not about length of the fight. Like, to me, a low diff is like Zoro versus Monet. Or like a low mid-diff is like Zoro versus Pika, you know, where one character is clearly just toying with the other character the entire time and exuding very little effort. Let's say that. Exuding very little effort is, to me, a low difficulty, because that's what it means. Like, it's low difficulty. I think Zoro definitely, like, you can't put together all the Zoro versus Lucci fights and say that Zoro wasn't putting in effort, or that this wasn't at least, like, that he was having the same level of difficulty as, like, Monet, where he's just basically not, I don't know, barely engaged or whatever, you know? I definitely think he was putting in effort. Yeah, that's it. I think he had to put in effort to defeat Lucci, like legitimate effort to defeat Lucci. That doesn't mean that he had to use the best that he can absolutely do, because then that would be like a high diff or something, like high difficulty. But this would be, to me, this fight is almost the definition of a mid diff. That's basically all I got. Yeah. Okay, Maya, welcome to the Yonko. I appreciate it. Thank you for joining. Hold on. Catching up here. Thank you for joining. I did just release another a Yonko podcast earlier this morning, so make sure to catch that out. Catch that when you get the chance. And Joseph eBay, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 2 months, man. Yo Morj, astronomical chapter. This message was sent after careful consideration and reflection over 17 plus hours. With that being said, how's your day going? Thank you. I was talking about this earlier at the start of the stream. My day is going very well. I do enjoy streaming in the middle of the day for sure. It feels like a casual Friday sort of thing for me. It's just relaxing. Get to drink coffee while I'm streaming. Yeah, it's just, I don't know. You're a little bit fresher. There's other factors, but I like streaming in the middle of the day. Main thing I got to deal with right now these days is apartment hunting. So that's still in the back of my mind. But yeah, today's really good. Got to wake up, read a great One Piece chapter, like a phenomenal One Piece chapter. Really good day. I'm sure a lot of you are enjoying the day as well. Friday, get to read a One Piece chapter Friday morning. I don't know. Greg is saying it was clearly high diff. Okay, so the tricky thing with so low diff, mid diff, high diff. I think the tricky thing that comes into play is basically when characters have transformations, right? Because transformations are power-ups that they don't use, right? Because you could look at Luffy versus, let's say Luffy versus Chinjiao, right? Luffy versus Chinjiao. Luffy's fighting Chinjiao. To me, that's like a mid-diff fight for Luffy, personally, right? Like, it was a mid-diff fight for Luffy, but Luffy also didn't use Gear 4th. We know that if Luffy used Gear 4th, even for like 15 seconds, then he would just stomp Chinjiao right away, and it would be a low diff, right? So I guess it depends how you look at it, right? Because is it a mid diff just because it took Luffy some time? He didn't take significant damage, but he did have to exude a good of effort, and it wasn't easy for him to roll over. Like, he didn't just roll Chinjiao over. It took him like an extended period of fighting where they were going kind of back and forth, and then Luffy kind of ended it. Or do you view it as like, well, it should have been a low diff because Luffy could have just gone Gear 4th and crushed him right away. Therefore, you view it as a low diff. You get what I'm saying? I view a similar situation here with Luffy and Lucci. Like, reality is Zoro was putting in effort. They were going back and forth. Zoro was not toying with Lucci, as far as I could tell. And ultimately, when Zoro really put in some effort, he was able to overcome him. That's a mid-diff. You could argue that, well, Zoro didn't use, like, he didn't use Ashura. He didn't use Advanced Conqueror's Haki and such. Therefore, because he didn't really use the depth of his bag and he could have ended it a lot sooner. Therefore, it can't be a mid diff. You get what I'm saying? So I don't know. I don't think it's a high diff when the character didn't use everything it can use. Does what I'm saying make sense? You guys see what I'm saying? I don't know. I think once power-ups and stuff come into play, it's just difficult to say what's a... Like, the definition becomes a little hazy. Because the character could be doing some other shit. They're not. They're struggling. Ultimately, they win. How much do you value that struggle? It's just, I don't know, semantics. To me, that's why I'm kind of just like, I'm done with the Zoro Lucci stuff. Let's just move on. It's whatever. I saw a lot of people getting really excited and hyped on Twitter about Zoro defeating Lucci, and I'm just like, really? Because didn't like most people think that this would be over like right away? I don't know. To me, it's not hype. I don't view it as embarrassing either. Like for a little bit, I was like, this is kind of funny that this is going on this long, and he is huffing and puffing. And as funny as that sounds, he's huffing and puffing. That there's no other way to spin it. But at the end of the day, he can end it, right? So to me, it's just, who cares at this point? It's just a thing that happened. Zoro's off screen for a while. He's doing this shit. It ended when it needed to end. Is it embarrassing? No. Is it that exciting? No. There's other exciting shit, which is Gorosei around. Let's see how he does it against the Gorosei. That's what's cool. Lucci, don't care at this point. Fodder for Hire, cool name. Thanks for the 20. Mago Mago no Morj, do you believe the summoning circles are an ability exclusive to Saturn, or can they all do it? Emu and the stars having similar styles in their silhouette seems like a hint. So I go back to the video I did recently, which is that the Gorosei are puppets created by Emu. I have greater faith in that now. If they're not puppets, there's something else, just because, as other people mentioned, there's no devil fruit names being revealed this chapter, so it's not necessarily devil fruit abilities. And I do we have the telepathy, that's another part of it, and I do believe that the summoning circles are not necessarily an ability exclusive to Saturn. I think that it's just something that can be used to summon the Gorosei. I don't know. I think it's getting stronger and stronger a possibility that they are just creations by Emu. Frederick Leo, thanks for the 5. What if the message is already playing all around the world and the 10-minute timeline is a red herring? Throne Room broadcast could be fake. I mean, that's possible, but I feel like it just makes I would like the Straw Hats fight to actually have meaning, you know? Like, the excitement of them having to hold off the Gorosei for that period of time so that they can achieve this one specific thing. I prefer that actually matters, you know, rather than it just being like, oh, well, this is just a made-up thing, you know? I don't know. Talha, thanks. Morj, what do you think about a potential crew split up based on Sanji's dialogue, monsters stay and the rest sail to Elbaf? I don't know. I would rather the crew go together. I'd definitely rather the crew go together. I could see that being possible, but maybe that would be a good way to get some highlight and emphasis on the other Straw Hats. I'm also curious, like, would Jinbei be in charge of that group? Who leads that group? Because usually in One Piece, it's kind of like the strongest is the de facto leader of the bunch. Or would Jinbei stay on the island? Jinbei would probably stay. I don't know. That's weird. Sanji versus Lucci. I've got Sanji above Lucci. I just think that, you know, to me, Luffy versus Lucci, that was... Like, we know that Luffy can basically fold Lucci literally whenever he wants, right? He was barely trying. He beat him while giggling and laughing and stuff. That's a low diff, right? It's a low diff. I think Zoro versus Lucci, it was like a mid diff. I feel like Sanji versus Lucci, he would have more difficulty than Zoro. That's basically how I view it, but I think all three of them could beat Lucci. I think part of it is also the fact that, like, Sanji viewed struggling with Lucci as being kind of ridiculous. So I get the sense that Sanji also feels that he can beat Lucci. I can't even pronounce this. JLOKGBKHG. Thanks. Sanji about to be like, Zoro-chan, save me, like in Wano. I don't think that's going to happen. But thanks for the first super. I appreciate that. That is funny. Loud Waffle says the real question is, would Oda let Sanji fold Lucci? I don't know about that. I just don't think that fight's gonna necessarily happen. I think that Sanji would beat Lucci. Loud Waffle says, Morj, what diff would you rank Sanji versus Queen? In my opinion, mid diff when Sanji's exoskeleton activated, maybe even low diff. Yeah, I kind of lean towards that. I view the fight more so as, like, to me, it's like it's kind of like if Zoro fought King again with advanced Conqueror's Haki from the start, it would be a low mid diff, because that's basically what it became. Like, King was just completely overwhelmed and fucked the moment that Zoro pulled that out, right? The fight overall was extreme diff for Zoro, but the part that kind of matters in a hypothetical rematch would be the second part, where Zoro's actually got his ability. Like, he basically steamrolled King. There was not much King could do to him anymore after that. Sanji, same thing against Queen. Once he got his exoskeleton, it was kind of like, to me, it's mid-diff, low-diff, something like that. That's also why I think that there's a lot of credence to the idea that Sanji could also beat King, because of how easily he was able to handle Queen once he got the exoskeleton. Gerard Williams says, same difficulty, but Oda would show Sanji actually getting hit. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the difficulty would necessarily be. I think Sanji would have to use his exoskeleton. Let's say that. Breezy2x, thanks for the 2. If Zoro used Conqueror's Haki right away, could he have one shot? Maybe, yeah, it depends which move he used, because, like, how many times did he even cut King in the fight before defeating King? Like, we know Lucci's not as durable as King, right? So, like, Zoro cut King. Well, really only Flames On matters, though. So maybe that's not fair. But either way, like, yeah, come on. Like, if Zoro used Conqueror's Haki right away, yeah, I think he could have. If he used a strong move with Conqueror's Haki, like the same move he used to defeat King, then yeah. If Zoro used Ashura, then there's no question. If he used Ashura, then it's just done, right? Then there's, like, it's not even, there's no question. Oh, Tala's also bringing up Ifrit. Yeah, Ifrit too. Yeah. Enzu says, do you think Roger saw the Gorosei or knew about Imu? I don't know if, no, so Roger was on God Valley, right? Roger was on God Valley, and Saturn was on God Valley. I wonder if Saturn went, because, like, the battle must have gotten pretty crazy. I wonder if Saturn entered into his demonic form there. Do you think the Gorosei were summoned to God Valley? Do you guys think the Gorosei might have been summoned to God Valley? Because, like, Saturn did it here because there's an emergency, because the whole world government shit, like, might be blown to the rest of the world. But I wonder if, because God Valley was getting out of hand too, right? So we don't know what the consequences would have been with God Valley. I wonder if it got out of hand enough that the Gorosei were summoned. Imagine that. That would be fucking insane if the Gorosei got summoned to God Valley. That's something to think about. That would be cool. That would be really cool. Off the top, I feel like Roger could have probably at least learned about Imu through the final poneglyph. I don't think Matt, I would agree. I don't think he saw or fought Imu, but he might have known about him after reaching Laugh-Tale. I would agree with that. Gorosei forms, I'd like to believe that Saturn transforms at God Valley, because he's there, you know? He's there. Frytosa's favorite Gorosei zone design. For me, my favorites in order are... It's crazy, because, like, Saturn was so cool when Saturn was revealed, right? It's just... I'm trying to separate, like, you guys know what I'm saying? But because when Saturn was revealed, everyone was flipping out. It was just like, that's one of the coolest designs ever. Oda, master of design, etc. Now it just feels kind of not as hyped over Saturn's design. I'm not sure if it's because we've been seeing it so much, or if all the Gorosei are just straight up, like, if he's just overshadowed by the Gorosei. Let me actually pull up the chapter itself. I want to take a look at the full spread. I'm not going to share with you guys just because I mentioned this before, but can't screen share in... when a new chapter comes out. It's just too risky. Let me take a look at this. So if I'm looking at all 5 of them, what a big spread. It's just insane. If I'm looking at all 5, Saturn does... Okay, so in the full spread of all 5, Venus Jura is a little harder to see. So he doesn't even draw my eye immediately. But I think overall I found his design to be the coolest this chapter once we got to see a little bit more of him. Um, like, I find his hybrid form very cool. If I'm looking at this, I would say Saturn does look really cool. Like, I encourage you guys, take a look at the spread again. If we were to just get all 5 of them revealed right here, right, for the first time ever. So imagine you've never seen Saturn before. I think Saturn still stands out quite a bit. I think Saturn's design is just really, really cool. Just the spider tarantula type form, but also the devil horns, bull horns, whatever. I think it still looks really cool. At a glance, I think Mars, Saturn, and Venus Juro look the coolest. Then I think I think I've got Warcury last. The boar I don't find that cool. The giant worm, I think Jupiter, I've got a bit above him. So I got Jupiter 4th, Warcury 5th, and then top 3, I still think, yeah, maybe I got Venus Juro first. I think I've got Venus Juro first. Venus Juro is also just like a little bit more detailed of a design than Oda normally does. You know what I mean? Because there's a lot more lines involved with drawing him, with all the bones and everything like that. Bones, horse features. It's a little bit more detailed. Mars is also very, very detailed. And Saturn's cool. I don't know, actually just looking at the full spread, I think Saturn might be cooler than Mars. Saturn looks really, really sick here. It's just we're so used to him that we don't think about it as much. But I'm trying to imagine if I just solved these 5 for the first time, who's the coolest? Not Jupiter, not Warcury. Mars looks badass. Saturn looks badass. Venus Juro looks cool. I think later panels show him off a little bit better. I don't know. Let's say Venus Juro, then either Saturn or Mars, then Jupiter, then Warcury, something like that. Something like that. I did a poll already, Joseph eBay. I did a poll for the Gorosei. Venus Juro won as the most popular. Damien writes that 75% of chat thinks Zoro didn't use advanced Conqueror's Haki. Man, I freaking wish we could actually tell. Genuinely frustrating. It takes away my enjoyment of those scenes. Oh, I thought that Zoro used advanced Conqueror's Haki to defeat Lucci. I assumed that people were talking about, like, was he using Conqueror's Haki earlier in the fight? I don't think he was. Let me take a look again. I thought he was using advanced Conqueror's Haki to defeat him. Again, it's just hard to say because, like, Haki's so ambiguous. We do get a lot of large streaks here. Yeah, we get a lot of large streaks of black lightning here. I don't know. I'm not convinced that, like, you need to see flames for it to be confirmed that Zoro's using Haki, because I think that that's kind of vague. Also, like, earlier in the fights, you saw some flames, but then people were contradicting that, saying, like, no, but that's just, like, an Enma thing. That doesn't mean Advanced Conqueror. I don't know. I kind of thought that Zoro just used Advanced Conqueror's Haki to defeat Lucci, personally. The Joe says it was vague, there was no flame, but to me it's just like, but nobody else gets flames. Like, why? Just because that was kind of a thing, that was a thing that we kind of saw at some point during Zoro versus King. But then, like, people were arguing that when there were flames on earlier in Zoro versus Lucci, that doesn't count as Advanced Conqueror's Haki. So, to me, I don't know. I'm just calling it like it looks like to me. I think that this is Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Also, my question is, like, why does it really matter that much? Because, you know, does it make it that much difference if, like Zoro uses Advanced Conqueror's Haki to one-shot to one-shot, whatever. If Zoro uses Advanced Conqueror's Haki and then immediately defeats Lucci, that's not embarrassing, that's good. That's cool. That's kind of what a lot of people thought would happen. So what's wrong with that? Unless, like, people really, really only like the idea that Zoro beat Lucci without using Advanced Conqueror's Haki. I don't know. To me, this just looks like Advanced Conqueror's Haki to me. It is generally vague, so it's hard to say, but I just don't think it's a big deal. If he, like, that's good. That's right. Like, that's kind of what people hope for. Zoro can use Advanced Conqueror's Haki and defeat Lucci. Isn't that what people are saying? Terrible Glory, thanks for the 2. Do all 5 elders fall this arc? No, I definitely think that they're mostly being saved for the final arc, but I think that Saturn could go down here. Venus Juro having a black blade. But Venus Juro doesn't have a black blade, right? Because we've seen it in the past. We've already seen it, right? We've seen it just because he shows up with Let me see. Let me read again. But isn't this just using Haki on his sword? That's like saying Zoro has a black blade because Zoro uses, like, you know, like Zoro's blades are black when he cuts Lucci, but that doesn't mean that he has a permanent black blade, right? Unless Oda retcons something. Billy Bob says Zolo fans want him to be stronger. That's why they say he's not using Advanced Conqueror's Haki. I get it, but it's also just like, I don't know. How much of a, like, is it that bad that he used Advanced Conqueror's Haki to, like, you know, isn't it good enough that he used Advanced Conqueror's Haki and then defeated Lucci? Akash Panda says, but it's even cooler without Advanced Conqueror's Haki. I get it. I mean, to me, I kind of like if he didn't. To me, I like the idea that he used Advanced Conqueror's Haki here to finish Lucci because it adds the significance of, like, to me, it makes the, for me personally, it kind of makes the scaling a little bit clearer of where Lucci's supposed to fall, and it fits how I believe Advanced Conqueror's Haki's supposed to be in my mind, which is just like, when you turn it on, there should be like a significant difference in the strength of your attacks once you're using Advanced Conqueror's Haki. So to me, I like the idea that Zoro and Lucci, they're about even without Advanced Conqueror's Haki. But then once Zoro turns on Advanced Conqueror's Haki, that puts him in another tier. I like that idea. I don't know. At the end of the day, maybe it just doesn't. I don't know if we're ever going to get a concrete answer. I guess we'll get a concrete answer. I don't know. We're never going to get a concrete answer. To me, it looks like Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Bingle the Yoop, thanks for being a Yonko tier member for 17 months. Saw a post earlier this week that theorized that Lucci may go too far after Zoro puts him down and ending up like one of the Impel Down guards. Thoughts? Oh, that'd be cool. And then maybe we get one more Lucci fight. Maybe. But I don't even want Lucci to fight anybody at this point. I'm like, can we be done with this dude? Maybe like Jinbei versus Lucci, I guess. If it's Sanji versus Lucci, I'd find that boring. I don't know. Nate is late says Oda's drawn Zoro using Advanced Conqueror's Haki. It doesn't look like that in the recent chapter, but it does look like the same as when every other character uses Advanced Conqueror's Haki, you know. And also, people were pointing out like when Zoro started fighting Lucci. Like I assume you're talking about like the little flame stuff, right? When Zoro started fighting Lucci, there was flame stuff. So that is what it normally looks like when Zoro is using Advanced Conqueror's Haki. But then people said, no, that's not Advanced Conqueror's Haki because there's no lightning. So it's like, okay. And I was on board with that. And now there is the long streaks of lightning. But people are saying, well, no, this doesn't count because there's no flames. So, I mean, I get where people are coming from. I also just think that it's not been defined enough for us yet how consistent or how much Oda even remembers the specific visual cues that he's doing, like how specific it is for Zoro. Like, I get why people are saying like, no, there have to be flames and long streaks of lightning, otherwise it's not Advanced Conqueror's Haki. I kind of get that, but I also think it's just like, are we even sure that Oda is that fucking specific and meticulous about it? I personally don't think so. I view this, I'm like, yeah, if it was any other character, we'd probably just call this an Advanced Conqueror's Haki attack. Just based on what it looks like. I don't know. Billy Bob says Zolo's been using Advanced Conqueror's Haki all battle. I don't think that's the case, because like it just doesn't make sense. Because if you look at Zoro versus King, right? Like, and just in general, if you look at Advanced Conqueror's Haki in like every other situation, it's very clear that the visual cue for it is supposed to be no contact, significant no contact, right? Like, if you go to Zoro versus King, that's what's shown. Like, King's trying to, like, lock Zoro's swords in. Zoro's using Advanced Conqueror's Haki, so he creates a huge amount of separation, right? That's what it looks like when two characters are clashing with Advanced Conqueror's Haki. Same with Luffy versus Kaido. Same in general with, like, you know, Big Mom Page 1, etc. Garp, Galaxy moves, stuff like that, right? So if you see Zoro and, like, before this, we were seeing Zoro and Lucci, their sword and claws actually touching. To me, that's like, well, that can't be Advanced Conqueror's Haki then, right? Because otherwise the one real cue that Oda kind of explained to us about it is just irrelevant, you know. Dick so small, I piss on my balls. Thanks for the 5. I'd love to see all the Yonko meet on Lodestar, and terrified of their power, Buggy challenges them to a 4-way Davy back fight, and he's just really good at it. He's just really good. Like, you're saying he gets lucky at it or something like that? That would be funny. I feel like if there's a Davy back fight, I felt like it'll be on Elbaf, but I don't know. JP, thank you for the 20. Scariest part of these guys is how they went straight to business as a seamless unit. I definitely agree. I talked about that earlier. 2 of them back up Saturn. One immediately begins saving their marine allies. The other one flies straight to the source of the problem. Yeah, it's really, like, the Gorse are just written differently than any other subordinate group in One Piece. It's fantastic. I don't know. Just, I'm really, really excited to see them actually start fighting characters next chapter, because this chapter was kind of like, you know, we see them flex their abilities, and we see Jupiter eat Luffy and then get his head cut off, but I want to see them, like, Venus Jura fighting Zoro a little bit, or Sanji fighting Mars a little bit, or the Giants against some of these characters, you know? It also makes a lot more sense to me why Oda included the Giants now this arc, just because maybe the Strats would just be too outmatched with all of these at the same time. Bassam El Madawi, thanks for the 5. What's up, Morj? I've missed so many streams. I wanted to get your opinion on Logia Awakening. I can't accept that we saw all of Kizaru's arsenal. I do still think, and I believe I'll be putting out this video in the next few weeks. I'm just looking for a little bit more. I do still think that we could potentially get a really big Kizaru moment before the end of this arc. One that will make him look good, and one that will flex Logia Awakening. So watch out for that. I agree with you on that. Also, I'm going to call the stream in probably 5-ish minutes or so. So just a heads up to everybody. Damien writes, as a Sanji fan, I don't want Lucci. That's sloppy turds at that point. But, like, Zoro fans also didn't want Lucci. If you remember, before the Zoro versus Lucci fight even got set up, most Zoro fans were basically saying, yeah, Luffy beat low diff Lucci, and Zoro would low diff Lucci too. And, like, everyone's kind of just like, yeah, Lucci sucks ass, Luffy and Zoro would stomp him, etc. Then the Lucci fight started. I don't really remember Zoro fans being, like, excited about the Lucci fight, but they were kind of just like, yeah, Zoro will just stomp him really quickly, and that'll be cool. So I don't think Zoro fans even wanted the sloppy seconds from Luffy. So Sanji fans, you're just gonna have to accept it to get sloppy thirds, because, like, it's just the way it goes. Has anyone seen It's Always Sunny, the Dennis system episode where it's like Mac gets Dennis's sloppy seconds, and then Frank gets Mac's sloppy like, did anyone see that? The Dennis to Mac to Frank sliding scale, because I feel like that's basically what we're looking at here. Like, Sanji fans are just gonna have to deal with it if that happens, because Zoro fans dealt with it for 6 months. So yeah, you can't complain. You just gotta accept it. Flame of the Spirit, thanks for the 5. Do you think Mihawk will become an ally to the Strats in the future of the series? I don't know if ally is the right word. I mean, I don't think he'll be like an enemy. I mean, I think in contention when they're up against Cross Guild or whatever, fighting for the One Piece, I think, yeah, but I don't think he'd be like an enemy. Like, I think that maybe he could do something against the world government towards the end or something. I don't know. But, like, I don't think there'll be, like, allies necessarily, like Law and Luffy were making the alliance and such, you know? But maybe, like, getting in on it, on the action, and helping out a little bit in some way. I could see that. Bingle the Oop, thanks for the 5. Usopp versus Impel Downguard Lucci would kind of slap, though. Dude, I don't know if Usopp's going to survive. Imagine the guy who gave Luffy the talk he needed to get up, getting his turn LMAO. I fear for Usopp in that scenario. I'll just say that, because Lucci's fucking fast. I think the biggest weakness for characters like Usopp and Nami is if characters are really fast and can just take care of them very quickly. You know? JWP, thanks for the 5. Saw someone on Twitter say the Gorosei forms look a lot like some of the Sea Kings and or Sea Beasts that we saw on Fishman Island. Well, let me see. You're saying the ones that caught the Noah, right? The ones that caught the Noah? I don't know if, let me try and remember. Oh, wait, no, are you saying the ones that we saw right as, so there's 2 options here. Are you talking about the ones that caught the Noah, or the ones that we saw as we were approaching Fishman Island, like outside Fishman Island? Yeah, I don't think Usopp's beating Lucci. I think that would be a little bit much. Let me take a look at these sea beasts. Probably chapter 600 something. 607 maybe. 606. Let me see these sea beasts. The okay, you're talking about the sea beasts that are outside fishmen. I don't know about that. I don't agree with that. I think that's a stretch. I think that's a stretch personally. The ones that caught Noah. Okay, there's maybe something to that. Let's check that out. It's probably 648. Maybe a little earlier, 647. Let's see. The ones that caught Noah. I could see Mars looking like the giant bird one. Nah, I personally don't see it. I'm not gonna lie. I think it would be a bit of a stretch for me to say that I see that. I don't see it. Cheesehead302 says, I'm currently getting my ass beat by the Sekiro final boss. Ooh, Ishin. That is a... fuck, I probably spoiled slightly there. Forget the thing I just said. But Sekiro's final boss is amazing. My favorite... Dark Souls 3 DLC, the final DLC's final boss, is probably my favorite boss fight ever. But Sekiro's final boss is a close second. It's better mechanically, like pure gameplay wise, like mechanically. To me, that's the most fun boss fight ever. And I've always enjoyed going back into the game and fighting Ishin every once in a while. I haven't done it in a long time. The last time I did it was actually for the stream. Like I streamed myself playing Sekiro one time, and like I beat Ishin as the first thing to do. But I like the Dark Souls 3 final DLC final boss just a little bit better, because even if Ishin's gameplay wise and mechanically better, the Dark Souls 3 final boss is, there's a lot more, I find other things better. It's more cinematic, atmosphere, there's greater weight to it just based on the story of the Dark Souls series up to that point and what this is doing for the story. Character-wise, there's just other aspects that go into it, music, etc., that just nudge it slightly above the Sekiro final boss for me. But I also think that just design-wise, pure gameplay design-wise, the Sekiro final boss is, like, to me, the best boss fight that I've ever played, personally. Daniel Allen, thanks for the 5. Haven't caught a stream live in a while. Peak chapter, maybe the best of Egghead. I'd still argue that the Kuma flashback chapters were the best of Egghead. But in terms of just plot, narrative, hype, tension stuff happening, like in-story stuff, I would say this is the best of Egghead. Also, monthly reminder to read Stormlight. Book 5 drops in December. I did hear a new Stormlight book is coming. The guy just cranks out these huge, giant novels. I'm trying to get back into reading at some point. I've got manga to catch up on, like Fire Punch. So, we'll just see. Isaac says, what game are you talking about? Sekiro. Sekiro is... To me, Sekiro... I haven't played a ton of video games, but the video games I have played, Sekiro has by far the best combat in any of them. There's nothing quite like it. Basim El-Wadawi, thanks for the 5. There's a funny Reddit thread of Lucci losing to each Straw Hat in reverse order. It's pretty funny slander. Lucci losing to each Straw Hat. How does he lose to each Straw Hat? Maybe I'll take a look at that later. Alright, guys. I'm going to wrap stream in probably 2 minutes. Still some final stuff coming in. Alec Livermont, thank you for the 10, and thank you for your first super. I appreciate it. Your first time I've been able to catch one live. Thank you for tuning in, man. Do you think if the Giants can damage with the 5 elders, we overestimated them or underestimated the Giants? Thanks for making my overnight shifts less ass. Oh, you're working overnight right now. All right, cool. I'm happy to help, man. So the Giants, I don't think damaging the 5 elders is a big deal, because so far everybody who's tried has damaged the 5 elders. Like even Bonnie was able to stab and like draw blood from Saturn, right? Kuma comes in, just like a random punch, very possible. I don't know if we even saw if there's hockey, or I forget at this point. But Kuma just comes in and just throws a big punch, and like that's got Saturn like severely damaged, right? The elders can be damaged. The bigger thing is that, at least from Saturn, we can assume Jupiter probably works similarly, I think. The biggest thing is that they've got hardcore regeneration, so they can regenerate really, really rapidly. That's the biggest thing with them, right? So hardcore regeneration seems to be a factor. Wait a second. Hold on. 1 second, actually. I just realized something. Okay, this could be huge. All right, everybody, hear me out. Hear me out. Okay, shit, should I save this for a video? Should I save this for a video? This could be really fucking interesting. I don't think it's interesting enough to warrant a video, but it could be a big deal. Okay. Listen, hear this out. Hear this out. I'm gonna end stream on this because I think it's a really interesting idea. Because we're talking about the Loud Waffle saying that they're immortal. Okay, so people talked about the order based on the pentagrams, like the numbers or whatever on the pentagrams. Some people were saying that the order would be something like Saturn's 5, Mars 4, Topman 3, Venus Juro 2, Jupiter 1, right? That is something that was being talked about, right? That was something that was being talked about, right? Correct? Right? Is that correct? Let's confirm this. People were talking about the numbers being associated with them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, with Saturn being 5, then Mars 4, then Topman 3, Venus Juro 2, Jupiter 1, right? So as far as I know, that was something that was being discussed. Okay? Now, consider this. And also, like, people are trying to imply that that's going to be the ranking of strength for them, right? Some people were talking about how that could be the ranking of strength for them. So, even just in the order that they're being depicted here and introduced, it's going down from Saturn to Mars to Topman, to Saturn to Mars to Mercury to Venus to Jupiter, okay? So, considering that, right, if you look at the ages of the Gorosei, if I were to right off the bat, and like consider immortality surgery, right? If you were to look at the ages of the Gorosei, Jupiter clearly looks like the youngest, right? And then if I were to keep going up the list, I would probably have guessed that Venus Juro looks, like they all look old after Jupiter, but, you know, I would probably guess that Venus Juro looks maybe a little bit, maybe because he doesn't have the white hair and stuff, but Venus Juro might be the next youngest. And then Mercury looks like he's a little bit younger than Mars and Saturn, who are really fucking old with like giant beards and all of that shit. You get what I'm saying? So I think the age even could make sense here, right? Like descending order in terms of age, like Saturn the oldest, then Mars, then Mercury, then Venus, then Jupiter. At least the age that they're presenting. So what if this is the case? Because with immortality surgery, there's a process to it, right? Like you need to... So hear me out, okay? So in the Void Century, Imu has 5 subordinates that are his most loyal subordinates at the point in time, right? During the Void Century, okay? Imu has these 5 subordinates. They conquer the world. First thing Imu does is have immortality surgery done upon himself, right? Then Imu might need to continue doing immortality surgery, like, or not might need to. Imu wants to, he has his 5 subordinates. It's time to make them immortal one by one, right? So it's time for them to have the immortality surgery done on them one by one. But there's a bit of a process, right? You kill the immortality surgery user, and then, like, because the immortality surgery fruit user dies, then you need to go through the process of doing, getting a new guy for it, making them do the surgery, and so on, right? So what if the immortality surgeries were done in order, based on the strongest to like the most valuable to least valuable Gorosei? So imagine all the Gorosei were initially the same age at the Void Century once Imu takes over, and so Imu gets his immortality surgery done, and then next up is Jupiter. Let's pretend Jupiter's the strongest, right? So then Jupiter is the first in line to get immortality surgery. So that happens. Then a little bit of time passes, and now they're able to do it again, do it on Venus Juro. So Venus Juro gets immortality surgery, so now his age is set. And then after that, Mercury, so now his age gets set. And then Mars, his age gets set. And then Saturn, and his age gets set. So you can see, like, they're all originally the same age, but it's just the order in which they might have gotten the immortality surgery was kind of reflects the order that the ages kind of got set at permanently, and could also reflect the order of strength in that the strongest got immortality surgery first, then the next strongest, then the next, then the next. It's just something fun to think about. I personally don't subscribe to that because in next Tuesday's video, I go into detail into what I think the hierarchy is, which I think is based on something else. But I did see this going around on Twitter, just the idea that, like, you can see the markings that indicate maybe the ranking of strength. And if we kind of assume that maybe they had immortality surgery done on them, I think that that's also an interesting little possibility, that maybe they're like originally all the same age, and just based on their appearance of youth, you can also kind of track a pattern of how strong or valuable they might have been, and why Imu might have like ordered their immortality surgery to go in that sequence or something like that. You guys see what I'm saying? I'm not sure if I'm making sense with this. Yeah, I'm saying it's possible. Afterglow says Jupiter being the strongest doesn't seem likely. I agree. I have an order that I think makes much more sense that's coming out in Tuesday's video. So just wait on that. But it was just something I was thinking about, like looking at their appearances. I was like, if they got immortality surgery, then like, you know, there's just such a wide range of ages here, and Jupiter's clearly way younger than like Saturn. Maybe it's something like just reflecting a sliding scale of when they got immortality surgery. But I would agree that I don't think that that's necessarily the order. Anyway, but that's something fun to think about. It wasn't interesting enough to make a video out of, because I think it's a bit too half-baked, and it contradicts what I actually think, which is next Tuesday's video, but still something fun to think about that I wanted to put out into the ether. All right, last question I'm answering. Thanks for GDN. Do you think each Gorosei could correspond thematically to a level in Impel Down, with Imu corresponding to the sixth? That's a cool little idea. So let's see. If we were to do that, that's a cool idea, because we know 5 is freezing hell, so that'd be Venus Juro, right? 4 is burning hell, so maybe that's Mars, the bird. 3 is starvation. Don't really know what the fuck that would be. One of them spikes. Maybe that's Saturn. 3 is beast. I don't really know how to do it, but I could see Venus Juro being 5. I could get where you're going with that. All right, guys. All right. All right. Thanks for tuning in. This was a phenomenal chapter. We'll figure out Friday streams, what time we're doing those. I get that people really like the Friday streams being this time, but that's also because you guys are all here in the stream, therefore you're able to show up, so therefore this time works for you all. I also want to think about the people who are used to Thursday evening streams and how we can adjust for them. So I'll probably put out like a community poll on Monday or something like that to see what time people like streams for the chapters for the new schedule. But yeah,